Oh, so you
Whoa,
want to...
whoa! You're jumping the boat here. What is Groove of War 4? First off,
If you don't know what Groove of War is, I'm sorry for you.
Okay, right. I guess I'll give a little bit of a pre-intro then for what Groove of War is in Groove of War 4. So Groove of War is a community that we run events, and our main event is called Groove of War after the community, because like people were good with names back then, and we just kind of ran with it. So we're currently in the middle of Groove of War 4. We're about entering the third week, which has been pretty good so far. We're just about to start the third round matches. I will be working on that after this podcast is recorded, and that will be done before this podcast gets put up live.
now I know it seems weird to interject with this part, but I feel like if we're going to start with all of it, Groove of War, of course, is a community for the game Wargroove, and it's a competitive community for it. I know obviously the people listening to this would probably already know that, but you got to cover your bases.
This is true. So yeah, and we only really do Wargroove. There was some discussion about doing some other games for a laugh, but right now we're just the Wargroove community, which actually sounds kind of like I'm being a bit negative there when I just say we're just the Wargroove community, because Wargroove is an excellent game.
I think you're going on a tangent.
I am going on a tangent.
Hey, we've even been mentioned by the actual devs. Like we're the unofficial official competitive scene.
Now we're bragging.
All right.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, I mean, there's 4 of us here, and one of them has their name in the game's credits, so I think that's a valid reason for like a little bit of. We'll go with positive self-reinforcement.
Is Groove of War in the game credits, or just names of people from there?
Just names of people.
Okay, let's not get lost, because we got a lot of ground to cover.
Alright, so Groove of War 4, which I'm going to assume everybody here kind of is familiar from this point with like what Groove of War 4 is. It's an online tournament. We run it. It lasts about 2 to 3 months. I think Groove of War 3 was about 9 weeks long, and this one's going to be slightly longer. And yeah, like last time we ran just straight double elimination. It was just like a simple online bracket. It was best of 1 up until top 8, and then we started running best of 3. And this time around, we're doing that similar concept of best of 1 in the early rounds, best of 3 in the later rounds, but we changed things up. So we actually went back to Groove of War 2's tournament structure, where we were doing Swiss into single elimination. There is some changes. We're doing it more based on like regions, although I guess in this case it's time zones, because what we refer to as the Australia West Standard Time bracket is full of people from America and Europe. But that kind of just works out, because like one of the big issues we had in Groove of War 3 was people would come in and they would sign up for North America or Europe, which were the 2 options back then. And then we'd have someone who's like, oh, I work evenings. And then their opponent would work 9 to 5 and they could never schedule a match. So yeah, we decided to change things. It's every week on a Thursday, which is why it takes longer now, because before it was once every 3 days. And yeah, those were like the big changes that we made as far as like scheduling goes. So like everybody shows up at a fixed time for their time zone each week, as opposed to just scheduling their own match every 3 days. And people know exactly when they're going to play ahead of time, as opposed to before, where because it was very vague about what you were entering. So if you entered North America but you worked nights or evenings, then you were kind of stuffed if you went up against someone that was working like a regular shift, for example.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but the Groove of War 3 bracket, you can literally go up there and look at like the prerequisites to set up your match. Like you even had an option to do asynchronous, and it ended up being an extremely big headache. There was just so many scheduling issues, and it was too much work for the tournament organizers really to run with such a loose system.
Yeah, and I think actually the async option is a good point as well, because we completely scrapped that in favor of, well, there's an asynchronous event now that happens every month called Test Your Metal, and that caters to that crowd much better than like a tournament structure like this would, because one of the issues we ran into with Groove of War 3 was someone would be like, well, I want to play synchronous, and the other person would be like, well, I only want to play like in real time. And then they would just kind of not play at all, which ended up being a massive headache, like you said. So that was done originally in terms of like wanting to be more inclusive to different kinds of players. There was definitely like a big push to try and get like tournament entry numbers up. But the reality is you really want kind of a strict tournament rule set that everybody has to follow. And if some people can't make it, it's kind of a bit tough. But the main thing is that you're better off doing a really good job for a smaller group of people than trying to like compromise and having a bad experience for more people.
Are you happy with
I
it?
think we also have more players now, I'd argue.
The actual turnout numbers are lower this time around, but only just. And because of the amount of people that we got in through stuff like adding async players, like in Groove War 3, I would actually say there's more people that actually show up and like compete on.
We definitely have more
schedule.
active players, is what we're in Groove of War 4.
Yes.
In Groove of War 3, we did actually have quite a few, like, more so this time around, more so than in Groove of War 4. In Groove of War 3, we had quite a few disqualified, never showed up for their first rounds. I mean, in my first round in Groove of War 3, I also played somebody who was, like, it was almost like their first time playing Wargroove, too. So it was, I feel like both the quality and, I mean, it's just straight quality, honestly, of players, that the ones that are actually showing up and not getting disqualified for no-shows, and their skill level has been overall better. So overall, I would think our quality, when you consider that into the quantity of players, I think it's actually higher than it was in Groove of War 3.
I would argue Groove of War 4 is better than Groove of War 3 in all regards.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it was that was because
It's a more mature. It's a more mature tournament with a more mature community. It's that simple.
Yeah, I would say like we learned a lot of lessons from Groove of War 3.
Exactly.
And we vowed not to repeat them, and that seems to have had a huge net benefit on the event.
Now, I want to say this might come into play because people are wondering, what about Groove of War 1 and 2? The people who ran Groove of War 3 are like 90% all different people from who ran Groove of War 1 and 2.
Yeah,
so
I don't, aside from Skits, I don't actually know who else was helping run those.
Yeah, I don't either, because that was before when I joined the community. So it's like we didn't really learn anything from those tournaments. So after the third one, we learned quite a bit. I think Gimbal here even has a good article about it too that he wrote.
Oh yeah, I did write an article that was like, what are the lessons you can learn from running like online events, and I use Groove of War 3 as an example, and it goes into like a lot of the lessons learned.
Yeah, but I think we're going very much into the weeds now. Like, we're now talking about Groove of War 1 and Groove of War 2.
Yeah, I think it's
instead
useful
of moving into Groove of War 4.
we're just briefly mentioning them because they're a part of the history of the tournament series, but no one on staff is really like around from then. Like XMO did some maps for it, but I think that's it really.
They were stepping stones to get to where we are now. I think that clarifies it.
Yeah, there was a big leap between 2 and 3, I think was the main thing. Because 3 was a group of people that came together that we were just like, let's just run a tournament because there wasn't any tournaments at that point. And then that became Groove of War 3. So it wasn't even originally going to be a Groove of War tournament.
Like, I was there for the whole of Groove of War 1. And, like, it has nothing on this tournament. Like, nothing. It was just, it was easier to organize because we had a lot of players because the game was new. But other than that, it was just a worse tournament.
You played default maps. Anyways, that's way off topic. We're talking about how.
Yeah, exactly. That's
how much we've learned from that.
I think key things that are important that you didn't mention are that changes from Groove of War 3 to Groove of War 4 that are really important. The timers, we now have in-game timers, and we're currently using chess 30 minutes. The other thing is all maps are very different, made by the same developers of maps of the same time, but now with 6 more months of experience, which it might not seem like a lot, but it's essentially double the experience of making maps on this game because the game is now a year old. And third, we're now playing on 2.0, which was essentially a new expansion for Wargroove that really changed the gameplay, which turns out that if you go now watch Groove of War 3 games, you'll have a very different experience from watching Groove of War 4 games, because the gameplay changed quite substantially from those times. So I think those 3 points, and the fact that there are no more async games, we now have actual schedules for all the matches. Another point that is affected by it is the streaming. I think the streaming is more consistent now, because we now have most of our matches happening at predictable times, so we can actually organize around them and actually stream them. That's about it. That's what I want to say about it.
Just so I can, because I put in a lot of work, we did stream a lot of Groove of War 3, but the big difference was it was pretty much just me streaming all of it by myself.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of drag people onto commentary. And then you look at now, we have almost too many streamers. We have matches getting streamed by multiple people at the same time, which I think is a really cool thing. I really like that. But
it's because it's easier to organize, right?
Yeah,
it's
really
just easier to organize. Now with schedules, things became easier.
Yeah, and the way we're doing the organizing, we can also ask players to play a bit more early if we want to cover more live stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a thing I'm going to post an announcement for tonight, is we will be asking people if they want to postpone their match by a little bit or play a little bit earlier in the day, but give us notice that that's going to happen, so that way we can actually organize people to stream in a schedule. Matches. Yeah, which should be a lot better than what we're doing right now. But I actually really like what we're doing right now.
No, I think what we're doing right now is great, and the only, if anything, if you can call it a complaint, is that after whatever game the streamer was watching finishes, they go into another game and it pretty much plays in fast motion, and they have to cover all the decisions made up to that point. But even then, it's not really that big of an obstacle to overcome.
Yeah,
it's just nicer to have the turn-by-turn commentary.
Yeah, I will say that I actually think commentating a match, I guess what you would call in a replay mode, isn't that bad. We've certainly learned a lot about having
normal
certain animations on. Yeah, you put normal movement speed on, and it actually makes the match reasonably easy to follow in replay. But yeah, I do think, especially when you're watching it live, you want to watch a match in real time so that you can appreciate, oh, this person's taking quite a long time on this turn. This must be a big deal. Whereas sometimes when you watch a replay, it's oh, they took 5 minutes on that turn. Oh, okay, that's quite a big deal. But we have to keep going because the match won't stop.
And now that we're talking about matches, do you guys want to start talking about the rounds themselves?
Yeah. So I just want to go into one quick thing. I mean, we'll touch on it as a discussion point later, but one of the big changes we made from Groove of War 3 to Groove of War 4, like you mentioned, there's in-game timers there, and there's also the option to do chess timers. So that was one of the really big changes. Is before we had a 5-minute turn timer, which was enforced by a referee, and now we have chess timers, so matches end within a certain time limit. But we can go into actual matches now. I figured I'd mention that before because we have had a few timeout matches, and it is important to know that context.
I'm sure we'll talk about them when we pass through them.
But we'll talk about chess timers later.
Yeah. Where do you guys want to start? Schedules throughout the day. AWST first.
Round 2 was definitely more interesting than round 1, but we can cover round 1 quite briefly, I guess.
Well, let's go through it sequentially, so in when they happened. So I guess you start off with Australia Western Standard Time, round 1.
Where we have
3 DQs.
Whoa, we're completely not going to ignore Bazik's hard work of posting these things. I was just going to go top to bottom in what
They're-
Bazik posted in the chat here.
They're all in the chat anyway. Just scroll to
No,
whatever
going
round we're talking about.
chronological order. We're going chronological order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
chronological.
it's AWST into GMT, into EST,
Yeah.
into PST.
They're organized on the Discord anyway, so it's easy to find. Or you can
Okay,
always
all right.
look
We'll
in
go
the brackets.
chronological. I'll just have to use my brain a little bit more.
So
Oh no.
But yes,
okay,
So,
AWST round 1. 3 DQs.
3 DQs. Which,
3 out of
AWST done.
I mean, I'll give a little bit of context. So, one person was on a plane because we have coronavirus right now, and they had to move between countries because they had to go back to their country of home. Then we had another person that had an emergency come up, and then we had another person that just did show up for their match, which is all unfortunate. It was very unfortunate that all happened in the first round of the tournament, but
And in the smallest bracket.
and in the smallest bracket. But actually, it's kind of lucky that it happened this way because draws and Swiss kind of mess with the point system and make it a bit more difficult to predict how people are going to move on. So if it was going to happen, I'm kind of glad it was this way as opposed to having
A double
some
DQ.
double DQ, which would be really awkward.
Yeah, we got really lucky.
Okay, let's not spend more time on DQs because we're going to spend a lot of time on some of the others.
Okay, so yeah, I
GMT
guess we
round
could go
one.
to GMT. Yeah.
So an easy a game we were all kind of waiting since the bans were announced was a Sejun versus Sankles, because Sankles decided to ban Sej from Sejun, and that's a pretty big deal.
The infamous
Yeah.
Ragnarhun.
That was one of the things we heard was people were really worried about how character specialists would have to deal with this rule set. And I think a lot of people were referring to Sedge because everybody loves Sejun. He won the
Respect.
The community choice.
they won
from Groove
community
War 3.
choice in Groove War 3. And they could very well win it again this time. Although I think they have some more competition this time around. But yeah, he's the people's champion, and Sedge has been buffed. He's actually quite a strong pick these days. So people were like, "Oh, actually, it's a valid option to ban Sedge," and someone did it, and it went really badly for them.
Well, honestly, and you talk about too the player Sejun, he's been playing since release. He's been around for a long time. He might be one of our honestly longest veterans that we have. So he's no pushover, and people are thinking, oh, he played Sedge, and he played what was widely considered, bar Merciful, the weakest commander for a long time, and he's honestly pretty good given the situation. And even though his commander was banned, he still did extremely well.
You
Yeah.
won very convincingly, that's for sure.
I feel
I
like
mean, the
extremely
thing is-
well is an understatement.
Yeah, something I think people tend to forget is that when you play against other commanders, you also learn them. So with the amount of games he's played, it's not like he has no experience in regards to other commanders.
I guess the other thing as well is because Sedge is slow on Groove Charge these days, as opposed to very slow. Learning how to play as a slow commander, you effectively are learning how to play other slow commanders as well. It's not exactly the same, but you get used to that kind of tempo of I know when my groove is going to come if we do this, this, and this. So, and Ragnar I think is a smart choice for someone who's coming from Sedge because it's a raw damage groove. So
I
They're
think
both
Ragnar
about
is
feeling
pretty
power.
easy to pick up.
I think keeping Ragnar alive long enough for her to get groove is the difficult part, but if you've been a Sedge player this whole time, then you're used to that.
I don't want to be the mean guy here, but let's not talk about balance.
I'm not talking about balance, but it's just. But I think it is true that if you play one slow commander and go to a different slow commander, then there is a lot of crossover in terms of skill.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, I think I mean, and we don't want to be the mean guy either. I don't want to be the mean guy here too. But I think that maybe in that match, if Sejun even played with Merciful versus, Niru or Ryota, I think he probably still would have won that one.
I don't know about Ryota, but yeah, there's definitely.
I'm not as bold, but I kind of agree with you.
Yeah,
I think I definitely agree. Like, Sedge has more than enough experience to just.
Sedge was definitely the far better player.
Tactically and strategically.
He was the better player.
Win against.
Well, and I'm a Lord of BM myself, so if I would have fought this person, and this is somebody who I've never known, Sanchols. Unfortunately, I've never met him, and I feel like I would have flexed on him and played Merciful just to, be the bad guy. So it's not against him. It's just, I think that was mainly a matter of experience there, more so than even commander picks or bans.
Yeah, weird stuff happening. Sejun was going to win that game.
An excuse. We were just looking for an excuse to talk about Sejun anyways.
And anyway, let's just go over the bracket. We don't even need to go over the bracket. Let's move to EST.
There was an upset, like Alexander losing to Captain Rainbows, also known as, his in-game name is Rika. And he'll actually, he got another upset the next week. So
what are you talking
Rika
about?
Is Captain
and also,
Rainbow is
in Alexander too, he's the person in the Discord goes by Valder. And he played on Valder, if I remember correctly, and still did not win that match. So that was actually also an upset.
Yeah, I think
I don't know if it was that much of an upset.
I do think that Captain Rainbow though is a good example of we have a new player coming in.
Yeah, he's just not
doing really well. So it's nice to see. There was an expectation of. I mean, hell, I even considered it of just giving. If we were to run the event of just giving everybody who I recognize as a stronger player, or at least the top half of each bracket, and essentially give them all a bye just to speed things along and go into more equal matches at first. I didn't go for it, and that didn't even get brought up among staff. It was just a thought that came into my head.
There's already seedings that kind of do it.
Yeah, but I think even though the first week is normally just kind of a beatdown, and I mean that's not to be mean to newer players or anything, but when you're a newer player going up against a Suzaku or a Master of Math or a Sejun in this case, it is kind of very one-sided. But it is nice to see people coming into the community as newer players and just taking names, and it's just really, really nice to see, and we got to see it in this bracket here.
All right.
Okay.
I don't think anything else is really worth mentioning there. Let's go to EST. I would say
first thing on EST that we need to start to talk about is Time Key Fraud Brand.
Oh, wait. Before we do that, though, there is a kind of PSA I want to put out about GMT.
About first round GMT specifically, or GMT in general?
First round GMT. And this is a kind of I guess you could say a public... Yeah, I'll just say it's a public service announcement. One person got DQ'd. They were sitting on their console in the lobby of their match, waiting, and they didn't check Discords. And they got DQ'd for it. And they completely missed out on their first round match because of that. I felt really bad, but it is a sign of you just need to show up in Discord on time, because that is honestly the most important thing.
Guys, respect the rules, or Gimbal is gonna flex on you.
I wasn't even flexing on them. They didn't check in on Smash GG, they didn't check in on Discord. We give announcements an hour before each bracket starts with instructions on a bunch of different things. And they just missed it. They were sitting ready to play their game. So yeah, just make sure you're on your match on time, because it does cost people wins and losses. But we can go to EST.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with the meme, pulling a time key over here. Let's just start with that. Not that I mean I was the origination of where the pulling a time key came from, the meme. And for those who are uninitiated with this, pulling a time key is, in short, it's just overextending your commander when you're in a winning position and losing because you're just like you were so confident, you're like, I'll be fine here, and then they kill your commander and you lose. And the history behind that is, you'll hear it eventually, but it was just we just call it pulling a time because it's like it's a regular thing. It's not like he does it any more than any other player, but it would just happen to stick with him.
Yeah. Also, other than time key, there were no weird results. Everyone that most people thought was going to win won, but time key wanted to be different.
I mean, this time, like he really went for a big suicide. Like he went in range of 3 knights with like 2 crits. It was pretty obvious he was gonna die, but you know.
Was it? I thought it was 4 knights and one of them suicided.
Yeah,
you're making it worse.
I mean, it was 4 knights and a trebuchet crit and an LED groove into removing all of his units. It was just
the
bad.
point is he was very, very dead. It wasn't like a weird coin flip that somehow the other guy went. No. Like he just placed his commander super wrong and he just paid it. He paid it like super expensive for that mistake.
We also saw Mohinder getting a pretty flashy CO kill with Wargroove across the map. So that was definitely nice to watch.
Yeah,
Also,
I think that was,
go on.
I was just gonna say, I think that was like one of the highlights of this entire round was, and it's funny because I think in 3 months from now that's going to be a very standard kill option we see from Wolfire, but for the moment it's cool to see people actually bringing that out.
I will say too, I was sort of expecting in the Mohinder match because I fought a few times versus him early on Gilgamesh, and he practiced that map a lot, and he had some cheesy openings where he would put this pressure on your headquarters, and if you didn't respond, to a small degree of perfectly, he would just kill your headquarters. And it was I wouldn't go far to say it was cheese, but it was very much, especially if you hadn't practiced on the map, I feel like he could definitely catch you off guard and get that. So his opponent did actually. Was old Gilgamesh? No, it wasn't Gilgamesh. Wait, no, it was Rustic. Sorry.
Oh,
First map was
Rustic. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Rustic. I'm sorry, not Gilgamesh. I meant Rustic this whole time. He was he had this thing with this night pressure on Rustic when he did it to me twice because I'm bad. But he had something and he knew how to put the pressure on that map, and if a person didn't reply to it, especially like if it's your first time playing Rustic, and say, not that there's a right or wrong way to send your co in a certain direction, but if you sent your commander to the wrong side, he would just win.
Having said all that, he was the strongest player in the game. Like he was always going to win, in my opinion.
But honestly, his opponent defended against it pretty well. He didn't get that opportunity, so that's sort of where I was going with that. Is that his opponent actually played well enough to defend against that super early pressure. Yeah, not get cheesed.
And you say like it's the expected result, but I mean I don't want to like sound too negative, but Mohinder has in a bunch of like test your metals underperformed, and like I think he knows that as well. I've had like conversations with him a bit, and he always sounded a bit down when he didn't perform as well as he'd hoped.
But he's playing against stronger opponents. Like, I think he just expects to be on the next level, and he might not just be right there, but like...
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy though, because it's nice to see him performing at like a level which I think he's always been capable of.
Yeah, he's a good player.
So yeah, it's nice to see him perform, like actually come out and like perform at his like a level that he should be performing at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and he took a long break from Wargroove too. Like I went on hiatus for a long while from playing actual matches, but he went on before me and came back after me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But honestly,
he
I
did
played a
seem-
few matches with Zested, and he's not a bad player either. I definitely think he's a little bit less experienced, but I think he's definitely got a lot of chance to be a pretty good player.
He's got a lot of room to improve.
Yeah.
So, do you want to move to PST round 1?
Yep.
Yeah, we can go to PST. There wasn't
we're
anything else
getting
really
to-
notable from EST. So.
Headphone
That
negative.
match.
Is that the match that matters?
It's that match in PST round 1.
Where Headphone pulled the
So-
titular, pulling a time key?
Yeah, headphone and Nargatep. No, it wasn't a time key. It was more like a time issue. A
Or, I mean,
timer
we might have to
issue.
name it after him if he does it again.
True.
I mean, like in theory, you could call it pulling an Ash, but I guess because Ash was the one that really did it first. But in this case, actually no, because it wasn't. Because Ash is normally the one that's always behind on time, whereas in this case, Headphone was ahead of time by
Yeah.
about 5 minutes the whole game.
Yeah, no, that has to be. It has to be an amazing turnaround. Like Headphone was winning that match for. I mean, pretty
For
much
the whole game.
the majority of the game. Yeah,
Yeah,
the whole
first-
game.
For his first 29 minutes and 59 seconds, he was winning the match.
He just couldn't finish. He just couldn't finish. That's
He
it.
just
And here's
couldn't
the-
finish, and he forgot about the chess timer closing in on him.
Yeah, he also missed a guaranteed lethal, which is awful when that happens. Because you look back and you're just like, I could have finished this game. I mean, in this case, like 40 turns earlier, but yeah, it's not fun to go back and realize that because there was. I think he would have. The only way it wouldn't have worked is if he'd low rolled on like 4 different units. And I mean, like, super low rolled.
Now, of course, there's some context there about a 40-turn game. That is not common here, by the way. A 40-turn game is part of the meme about the strategy that emerged at the very end of this game, and it was the first time we saw it happen. And it happened at least. I don't know if it's happened in another tournament match, but it's happened in casuals, where Headphone was winning, but he ended up using all of his chess time, and he was down to
1
10
second.
seconds or something. Yeah, 1 second. And just by the mechanics of the game and how the chess timer works, it like rounds up on how much time you'll have left. So he was down to 1 second and he was winning. And all he literally started doing was pressing escape, end turn, enter. Like he just had his mouse in the right place and was every turn. And he's proceeded to stall the game at 1 second left on his chess timer for, I don't know, like 20 something turns.
More than that, it was
Yeah.
at least 30.
But it was until his opponent recognized that he just needed to start attacking, because as soon as Headphone tried to do anything, his timer would just end. So he just needed to move his units, and that's how
Yeah,
the game ended.
that is the counter strategy of do anything is basically because your opponent can't move.
I mean, his opponent had like less than a minute left too. Only had like
Yeah, he
45
had 30
seconds.
So.
It was
It was
35
enough.
seconds.
It was
Yeah,
enough.
it was 35, and then he went down to about 20 something.
He
I
just
think.
sent the dragon
game.
to the commander, and he needed like
Just bombed
2
it over, like,
seconds
3
to turn.
turns.
Yeah, and like the game was over.
So,
any other
yeah.
match you guys want to talk on this bracket? Maybe Andy Matlin, sure.
Are we done talking about this match?
Yeah, we're done. I think that match was pretty self-explanatory. I feel like Headphone had it in the bag.
I think we're
or-
beating the dead man to death.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I will say I think the best match in that whole series was the match I was in. I think that was
It was a great
really
match.
good.
Well, the buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I
my
had a
match
buy,
was
but
also pretty good, you know.
yeah. I mean, I might have had a buy, but I got to make a lot of jokes, in chat about how tough my opponent was going to be. So, that was the real reward that we made along the way.
Yeah.
The
I
true
guess
friends-
like for the benefit of the people watching who might not have the visual on this. There are 9 people in PST. It's the only bracket that has an uneven amount of players. So one person, as far as I know, randomly decided
Gets a
gets
free
a bye
win.
each week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But past that, I think in PST,
I think
I
it's
mean, it
Indiment
was
Land
expected
Shark.
she would win. Indiment Landshark,
It's
think-
the best match.
yeah.
Oh yeah, Andament Landshark was also a case where chess timer got involved because Landshark started turtling pretty hard when he was in a quite losing position, and well, basically, what it came down to is that the chess timer basically forced the issue onto Landshark that he couldn't just turtle forever, and eventually he just had to lose.
Yeah. But it was a closer match, especially in round 1, where most matches weren't close.
Yeah. And I think it's the only match I saw someone basically throw in the towel before the match was over. Normally people will play it out, but this was a case of the Landshark's case if he just said, yeah, I actually can't win. I'm just gonna hit DG.
Yeah, a quick side point on that. That's one of the cool things about Wargroove. I mean, some people might disagree with that, is that even when you're behind, there's a chance that your opponent will pull a time key
Exactly.
and that they'll overextend their commander, and even though they're in a winning position, you can make like a Hail Mary play and potentially still win with commander kill being a win condition. There are room for comebacks, which obviously, if you ask some people, is a bad thing, and other people think that's a more exciting thing. But that's not even
It's
where
the
we're going
discussion,
with that.
the competitors versus spectators, right?
Yeah,
I think spectators will always like the comebacks, and the players
think
will
it's
prefer
just,
to
like,
the
I think
consistency.
it's just down to personal preference, to be honest.
It also adds a layer of strategy where you can kind of feign a loss in hopes of making your opponent over aggress and then punish them for it.
Mm.
So
Now, I
I
think-
do like it in that regard.
Now, I think before we go to round 2, I think this might be actually a good point to have the much dreaded chess timer discussion, because that just came up a lot
Really?
in this whole first
I
round.
think we should leave it for after, because in round 2 we actually
I
had one
think-
of the most important chess games.
Yeah,
of the
I
whole
would
thing.
say let's wrap up the remaining matches.
Yeah.
Because we actually had people show up for Australia West Standard Time in week 2.
Yeah, actually, all of them showed up.
Yeah, it really was just a bad coincidence in the first week of people had stuff going on and couldn't show up.
And we had
And it only takes like 3
surprises.
people. So.
And even though it was just 3 games, we actually had a few surprises. Or at least to me, there were a few surprises.
Well, there was one at least.
Yeah, I would say there's one.
Like TFJ being Burke is a pretty big deal because TFJ didn't really get to play on the first week because DQs. But he just he beat Burke on the second week, and because of how small the bracket is, and since he now has 2 wins,
He's now qualified.
guaranteed to move on. So
Well, that's the way it works.
pretty good for him.
That's the way it
I mean,
works.
I do want-
It's fair.
I do want to quickly talk about both of these players, because there's some history for people who don't know. So now Burke's been in the community for a long while, and he's been a long-time player of quick play and other matches. He watches a lot of games played, so Burke has a lot of both technical and practical knowledge about the game itself of Wargroove, because he's played a lot and he's seen a lot.
He was the original video person in the Wargroove community. Or
Yeah,
I guess the Groove of War community.
Yeah, he regularly hosts games out to for people to he literally just hosts games and be an observer and just watches all of them. That's one of the things he does. He plays quite a bit. Maybe not as much as some players, but compared to say his opponent TFJ, who honestly is a new face. Now,
apparently he's been around quite a bit because he's made a mod.
Well, that's what I was gonna. That's
He's
what I was
not a
gonna talk
known
about
player
there too.
from the competitive community. I think that's
Yeah, like I mean, because I've been around for a lot, and I've played quite. I used to host like 20 asynchronous matches at once, and I've played a lot of the players in the community. I've never fought TFJ. But I'll give it to the technical knowledge, and this is the thing TFJ has made is a modder in the game, and I know that seems like a weird point to bring up, but it means that he has a lot of mechanical knowledge of how the game works on a fundamental level, and he's made a mod that has some balance changes and some stuff of it. So it's not like he's completely inexperienced with the game. I think he has a lot of book smarts with the game, and in that round, he pretty much proved that even though he's not really like a well-known player per se, he honestly converted any skills or knowledge that he had into a win, and I think that was pretty impressive personally.
I think Burke also is underperforming a bit. I don't know if that's just because TFJ was just a really good player that no one knew.
Talking about TFJ, like on the first week, like since we all had DQs, we chose to like player friendly. Like, well, me and him, and well, from our like friendly match, I just saw that he wasn't really prepared. Like he didn't really prepare the map and stuff like that, his openings and stuff. So from what I can tell, at least, and I think he kind of learned his lesson in that friendly match, and it shows in his second round where
he was better prepared.
basically he had quite a bit of early pressure, and he kind of just played a solid game.
And I think that's honestly, I know it's another sidebar, but that's a strong point there, that competitive maps are designed in such a way that if you completely mess up your opening, that you just will lose the game against a good player.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like
You're just out of the game.
If you just do not have a plan for your opening, and you do not have like the first 3-4 turns an idea of what you can do, you are going to lose the game against a good player. There's no like soft way of putting that.
It just snowballs into a loss. It's that simple. A
There
few hundred
were
gold at the
some-
start just snowballs into a loss.
Yeah, and we had some good examples, not in Australian West, but there were some other brackets where we had good examples of players just not understanding how to play the early game, or like at least how to transition from the early game as well into the mid game, and then they just lose because they're behind on income, and they continue to be further and further behind the whole match.
Yeah.
So all in all, I think that was a well-deserved win from TFJ. I mean, when you like in hindsight, looking back at it, I'm like, that's how I said. I'm like, it's not as much as an upset as some people might want to say. I think it's pretty reasonable.
It's just I don't think we can actually call a player that is an unknown quantity an upset. Like, one thing is, we know one player is better than the other. But in this case, TFJ was basically an unknown quantity. We really didn't know at what level he was going to show up.
No, I think we can still call it an upset, because we know that Burke has a certain level. We know how he plays, and well, the thing is, when you don't know how someone else like TFJ is really, you don't know his level, well, you don't assume that he's among the top players, you know? So
you want to redefine upset now?
I agree that, no, it's just that if you gave like a lot of people, if you asked them who was going to win this, and people weren't answering with a meme, because TFJ got it.
But what you're talking about is a popularity contest. People would vote Burke because that's the player they know.
But in a serious rating, people would say Burke will probably get this match.
No, but they will not be rating TFJ because they don't know the player.
Oh, but here's the thing though. TFJ played a match on stream the week before. He showed up and he played against Saykoya, and they played, like, I guess you would call it like a friendly match, but it was still like they were playing under the same tournament conditions as anyone else. and Saykoya still beat him. So people had a rough idea of what his skill
but
level
the point
would be
isn't that Saykoya can beat TFJ. What Killsauce said, like didn't watch the match completely, so I'm talking a bit like just from what I'm hearing here. Like from what Killsauce said about the match, TFJ played to win. I don't mean to win. He played at a skill level that it deserved to win. So at that point, can we really call that an upset? Like Time Key losing that game where he pulled the Time Key, that's an upset. Like he should not, under any circumstance, have lost that match. But if a player that people don't expect shows up and he's playing at a level that maybe is above his normal level, but they show up and they show results, is that still an upset? Like I don't think so.
Upset.
Yeah,
No,
because
an
like
upset is not based of like the game state at some point. It's just beforehand, Burke was the preferred player to win.
I will agree
that's
with
about
you.
it.
The short of that is an upset is going to be a popularity contest. I mean, that's not that we need to jump all the way to PST in my game, but you know, it's an upset is very much a popularity contest, and it's just about a preconceived notion of who will win.
yeah, like it is. Yeah, I think
That's
you're right.
fine.
It's like the preconceived notion of like who will
Yep.
win. And like people expected Burke because Burke has been in the Groove of War community since before I joined.
Okay.
And like he's been like playing and he's been doing Theorycraft on stuff for a long time. I know he did take a long break from at least like doing video content and stuff. He seems to be a bit more active about that now, but
He never
I don't
stopped
know.
memeing, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know how much he was playing during that time either, because I don't think I've ever really seen him in like a Test or Metal, for example.
Anyways, I think in that case, after watching TFJ playing and trying to justify why it happened, I feel like it's a fair result. But I think we should definitely go to some of these other brackets here.
Oh no, we should not leave this bracket immediately. There are
We don't
two
have
more
to
matches
talk
on this
about
bracket,
my match.
and both matches, one of them we should briefly talk about it, which is Loveless and Louvre. Loveless missed his first match because he couldn't show up, was on a plane. He came, he showed up for the game, and he won. So he's now a contender to get out of the bracket, which is really nice to see. I think it should be at least mentioned.
Margin, I think, and it was expected.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said briefly, but it should be noted. But the other match, Saykoya and Sneaky Dragon, I think it's important to talk about at least a bit, in the sense that these are probably 2 out of the 3 players that people expect to play better in this bracket, and they played in the second round. And because the way AWST worked, now that means the loser of this bracket of this round will play Loveless next week, I believe. So now we have the top 3 basically having 2 of them having to compete to not go to tiebreakers. So I think the Saykoya Sneaky Dragon ends up being an important match for the whole bracket because of that. Because it changes the path that these players will have to take. And it was a good match. It was actually one of the better matches of the whole round, in my opinion. Like, it wasn't a big stomp. There were a few mistakes here and there, but both players had some mistakes. Both players played well. And it ended up creating, one, in my opinion, one of the best viewer matches.
I'll be honest, I didn't actually watch the match, so I'm not going to comment on this one. It was at a time when I was busy.
On that match, because I feel I should have played way better, but you know.
So my memory's like a little bit fuzzy because I watched a lot of Wargroove over the past like week or so. But from what I recall, you pushed in a little bit too hard at one point and got punished for it.
Exactly. That's when the game turned.
Now the thing is, like, I made an aggressive play when all I had to do was just like wait, because I was Sedge and I can just wait for a later game stage with Sedge and I just win. So yeah.
Yeah, because there was a point when you had Sedgegroove up,
Yeah.
but you didn't have enough army to get Sedgegroove to do anything.
The more specific problem, if we're gonna
I
go
think we
inside
can
the
move
match.
on. We don't need to stay too long
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
All right, well, it's a painful memory.
I was
so
not
we'll
talking
move on.
about the specific details about the match because I don't think that's.
And
What
you
we need
also
to
said we don't need to
discuss.
talk about balance, so you know.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I mean, like,
Okay.
one thing, actually, I just want to say one last thing about this whole bracket in general is TFJ is one of the only players that's actually located in the region that the time zone is in. I won't like dox him or anything because I don't know how much he cares about having that information out, but he is from
There.
that. Yeah, he is from around there. So it's nice to see someone from the region coming out of the bracket when like the essentially at the time the top 3 players in that pool, I would say like Saykoya, Sneaky Dragon, and Loveless are from out of region, and we're playing in that time zone for convenience more than anything. I know Loveless is back in that time zone now because he had to fly there because of the whole Corona thing, but it's nice to see people like winning out of their own region.
I believe Saykoya is also near there in terms of time zone, right?
Yep. Which I keep telling GimbleB, but he keeps forgetting for some reason.
You keep saying you're French, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm,
so like,
I'm
I keep
in Asia
thinking,
right now.
right? Okay,
I mean, I would have guessed that Sequoia's French, but you know. But we
I'd
know how
actually,
Gimbal
like-
is with daylight savings time. He can't even figure that out.
I mean, oh my god, let's not go into. Actually, I could go into it briefly. I'll just like.
Should
it'll
we
take
go
10
into
seconds.
GMT round 2?
I think we should go into GMT.
10 second like little thing
I'm counting.
because all the clocks are changing like throughout the next few weeks across the world, and I had to schedule everything based on like my own time zone across like the entire tournament, and it was a nightmare. And next time we're doing the Swiss rounds before clocks change, like when we go to like next year, that's definitely gonna happen.
With that
Anyway, let's
said,
go to GMT.
round 2. Who wanna start?
All right, so
Choose a match.
do we
Lots of
start
good
with
stuff
the
to talk
big
about.
one?
I think we
Yeah,
start
there-
with the big one. There's some good matches here, but we'll start with the big one, which is Alsame versus Math.
That's
Awesome.
The-
Like that's
that's the
basically
chess
like
clock
two
match.
of our stronger players in the community,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
like, having them face so early is like really interesting.
Well,
I mean, I have some insight into that match personally. Like, I think this round 2 was on Gilgamesh, and this was the new version of Gilgamesh without when it wasn't Valdermesh with HQ cheeses.
yes.
But like I think Alsame's first games on this map were quite literally like 4 hours beforehand because they were with me. Like he was playing these matches and he didn't even know like the mage opening into critting the village and all sorts of stuff. So I feel like that one in particular,
He was underprepared.
well, I think he was very much underprepared because I know he's not like the fastest player, but he does play Blitzgroove, so I know he is fast, but I think he was honestly wildly underprepared for that match. And not that I'm not taking any credit away from Master of Math. Obviously, Master of Math is a very prepared player and deserved the win, but I think that was almost like a really, really big percentage of the fact that Alsame was underprepared for the map.
I don't know if Alsame preparing would have made any difference. Having
Well, I definitely it would have made a lot of difference, I think, because
no, I
this
mean
is
in the
one of matches-
results. I don't mean in the specific match.
Well, let's talk about the match then, because as Gimbal was about to say the chess clock did come into like
It was
become
crucial.
a factor
It was crucial.
in this
Like
game.
this game was the poster boy for exactly what I've been talking for months about. What I consider to be the major problem with chess clock, which is what happens when you have a game that is clearly not over, and suddenly the clock decides a winner. And this was it. Like, we can say all day that one player was ahead at this point or X point or whatever, and then like Master was coming around saying stuff like, "Oh, but I was ahead, and then I understood that I could use the clock to my advantage." And Alsama Suzaku maybe was doing this because he was without time, or like we can go into all of those things. But if that game didn't have a chess clock and we just could magically add 15 minutes extra at the end of that match, just saying like, okay, this is nowhere near decided, let's add 15 minutes to this game, there's no one that can tell me that that game was over, and you could pinpoint which player was going to win. Like, it was way too close to call.
I think that there was definitely an advantage on Math's side. I think I agree that Alsami could have brought it back, and like if he'd had more time, he could have brought it back.
It was too close to call.
I don't agree with that. I think Math had a pretty good advantage.
Yeah.
I rewatched the match yesterday, and I don't agree with it at all.
So part of the illusion that makes you think that Alsami could have brought it back is that Math went for an HQ push afterwards. But that push wasn't meant to like win, and he probably wouldn't have went for it had the chess situation, like the chess clock situation, bit different, because that push was meant to make Alsami spend the rest of his time.
Yes, but when he started that push, he wasn't very far ahead. He was slightly ahead.
He had a pretty good lead.
He had a lead, but he hadn't won the game at all. If that was an async game without a clock, there's no one in the world that can tell me that before that push on the headquarters, that the game was over. Like, it simply wasn't. And then the players started playing the clock. That's what happened.
And then they started playing the clock. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. And like, I don't know if you just want to go into the chess clock discussion now, because like, when we had to come up with this rule set, we had to come up with an idea of like what's practical to run a tournament for, because turn timers in Groove of War 3 didn't work. Especially like, I mean, there was a bunch of other issues with them, but the matches just took way too long.
Yeah, but I think like that's a lot of people keep giving the Groove of War 3 turn timers as an example, but I think one of the things that it's clear from even the replays is that 5-minute turn timers is an insane amount of time. If you're playing with turn timers, 5 minutes is just completely crazy. Like,
which is weird because a lot of people went over time and got DQ'd on 5-minute turn timers.
Yeah. But it's a question of experience, right? It's experience, because now we see that with chess.
You say that, but
that with chess
that was some of the best players in the community at the time.
But that's because they were used to playing slowly.
I think that's also off topic, because I think that was honestly the amount of time for that is 1.3 games were so volatile because of pretty much Spearmen. It's honestly just Spearmen were the problem, and Tread Balloon were so volatile that you had to make a decision where if you wanted to push in your Spearmen, because I mean I did this multiple times where I would push in and they would just counter with their wave of Spearmen. They'd lose some ground, and then the moment you overextended a lot, they just pushed their entire Spear army into you and won because they killed everything. So I think that was more of a state of the game, of the balance of the game.
Yeah.
That any mistake could be made in that game could be made because you had to figure out how to work around spears, and that was just an unhealthy state of the game, personally.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, also technically, because spears were so cost effective, and like actually everything was cheaper. They didn't make anything cost less. Everything just got more expensive in 2.0. So like on average, there's less units on the field.
Went down by 50 gold.
Got cheaper.
Oh yeah, dogs got cheaper. But like, I guess my point is that people like the meta back then was you made spears and then you made other things out of your other buildings, right?
The term that was used before, I think, is accurate. Unhealthy, like it was just unhealthy.
But yeah, I think there was like more units to deal with, and they moved slower, so you had to take more time to think about stuff, and it was just.
And it's just any sort of engagement in that state of the game would just be so pivotal.
The thing is, we're already seeing that because chess timers have been instituted, the better players don't generally spend 3 minutes in a turn. They only start Math was one of the points he made after the game, was that he only started spending more time in his turns because Alsame was spending a lot of his time. So he understood that he had more time to play with. So he used that time. But he didn't specifically need it to use it. Like Shu is a good example. Like Shu KillSauce was a real good example. I talked about this with KillSauce. Like, it was a really good example of players playing fast and playing well. So I think there's an adaptation that is now happening, and that's happening with chess timers. It's not even with turn timers, where players are just playing faster and faster. And 5-minute turns, even with the 30-minute chess timer, I think, like in Groove of War, like maybe not 5, but 6 at most, will be a thing of the past. Will be a thing where you see a guy making a 5-minute turn against a top player, and you're like, this guy's gonna lose. Like, straight up.
That would only make sense on a turn where you like had a kill setup and just, or even like a survival setup, because there was another match we can go into later.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it has to be a critical turn for you to go overboard.
Yeah, but that I think that loops back around to get us back into the game too. Is about what I was talking about with preparation on the map itself. I think at some point, yeah, some people might be naturally gifted and can always play the game fast. And, you know, obviously we bring up Shu for that point, that he's pretty good at the game regardless of the situation. But he still makes mistakes. But to this, it's a matter of preparation.
Mistakes, right?
Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. And it's a matter of preparation on the map that when you're put in a situation, how do you convert that into a win? Or how do you convert that into not losing so much free dudes? You know? So I think that's where a lot of the issue came with that, is that, I mean, I told you, Alsame was pretty much not prepared for this round. And I think he got into a situation where he didn't know what to do on that map and where to go from his situation other than just playing normal Wargroove. And to me, like a truly successful player, you need to have some sort of plan for a map. You need to have some sort of game plan, some sort of decision like, okay, well, if the game starts to stall, what income am I going to take to break the stall? You have to have these other options available, and that's on a map per map basis where you think about what your options are and what is successful. You think about their reinforcement path. There's a lot of details that can go into that, and that to me is about an experience thing, that on a per map basis, what can I do if I think that the map's no longer making progress?
But then we have to come around and just say that, like, knowing those things and preparing for those things, that's part of the skill too. Like,
oh yeah, I'm not saying that's not a skill thing, but that's just what I was, that's just what I'm saying. I think that's the main reason why he lost. I don't think Alsame is less skilled than Master of Math in a general Wargroove sense, but I think in this particular sense that he just wasn't prepared enough was his main downfall.
All right, so I consider myself to be one of the players that can play the fastest, like in terms of when I'm prepared, at least, in terms of just like clicking faster and stuff like that. So I can give you insight about how you want to play how I think about the chess timer is you just want to keep it in the corner of your mind, because there are quite a few games where the chess timer doesn't matter because the game closes before that, so you don't want to obsess over the chess timer. But what I generally go about with it is, if I can build a lead on time, then sure, that's a lead I got, and I'll just keep it. And the thing is, when you were saying like Math was seeing Alsame take his time, and so he just chose to think more, like that's also acceptable. You have to accept that having a time lead is now a game state, and basically if you wanna play the time, you have to have the lead consistently, because stealing the time lead isn't really something you can do without thinking a lot yourself. So
yeah, but that part, I think it's a good part of the chess timer, right? That's the good part of the chess timer. Like
I'd say
the problem
for
isn't
now,
when you have a
people
better
aren't
player.
like-
It's when
Hang on. Let me finish, please. I think that for now we're seeing a bit of matches like these where it's a problem, and we'll keep seeing some of them.
I
But
think it will get worse.
like people, no, I don't think it'll get worse because people are still new to the chess timer, and stuff like that doesn't like. For example, you could have an argument that Alsami was like getting low on time and was behind and chose a defensive
But no.
a defensive posture. Let me finish, please. And
Yeah, wait,
that's what kind of led to the fact that he didn't have a grasp on a win condition anymore. So it's just that when the chess timer is in play, you have to keep it in mind, and that will come with experience and just game knowledge, how to play around and with the chess clock. So I think this is a problem we'll keep seeing, but people players will start to play around it, so it'll be less of an issue. And I
think-
don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but if you consider it a bad thing, you can expect it to become better.
I also think there's a couple of things as well. Is that, let's say we were running like 2-minute turn timers, because Bazik, I know you've run events with that. Alsami was taking 3 to 4 minutes per turn for a bunch of his turns, so he would have really struggled under those conditions anyway. I'm just gonna check that. But yeah, I think like it was a case of, even if we were playing in a different rule set, he would have had problems. And I think what KillSauce was saying about him not having practiced that map, I guess we'll say enough to be able to play quickly, was like a problem that ultimately I think that actually falls on us as a tournament organizers, because we did change the map pretty significantly, because we had a bunch of test games on it, and it was in Tester Metal this month, and we were looking at the replays from that, and myself and some other people in charge of tournament stuff and on the map team, we were watching those replays and we were saying, this isn't what we want from a competitive map, because every game I watched that came out of Tester Metal this month was 8 turns or less. And there was a huge issue with Valder, for example, where he had 100% win rate.
Now,
Unless
I will say, I think Bazik did have something to say about what Saykoya was saying before we got into the old version of
Yeah, I need
Gilgamesh.
to reply to what Saykoya was saying because I think it's important. Like he missed a lot of points and he went into a huge monologue, so I didn't want to interrupt.
But I felt like there was some extra context we needed to add, where Alzheimer was taking longer, and like he was talking about people having problems, and my point was that we changed the map, and I felt like we gave people a decent opportunity to practice on it.
It was 2
But I
weeks.
think-
It was more than enough.
Oh, this map was only changed.
2 weeks.
No, we didn't change it that quickly. We announced that it would see some changes, but we didn't actually announce the actual map with the map code. I think we gave people 1 week's notice.
It was at least a full week of like between when it came out and the day it was
Yeah, we
playable.
probably had a week to prepare.
Like a full week.
Yeah.
Like he had time.
I mean-
that wasn't the problem.
I mean,
Yeah, but-
arguably there was time to prepare, so that's why I'm putting the.
And everyone
the
had the
blame on
same
that.
time to prepare anyway. Like that's the reality
Yeah,
of
that's
the
true,
fact.
but I mean,
Mm.
If you compare it to, like, let's say other maps in the map pool, which hasn't been changed, although that said, we are changing one of the maps for next round, but it's a very minor change. But like the difference there is that all the other maps we announced when we announced the event, and people have had weeks to practice on those maps.
Let me just say one thing that I feel needs bearing on on this conversation about timers, and that is the idea that this will get better as players get better players at the turn timer. I think it's honestly, I hope I'm completely wrong, but I think it's ludicrous. It's completely like it's out of left field. This can only happen with very, very good players. There's a reason why the first time we actually saw the specific example that I've been talking for quite a while now, something like a month, only now happened with two of the better players, honestly, of the whole community. Two of the better ones. And that reason is you need to be extremely good at a game to be able to look at the timer and say, I have an advantage at 12 minutes and I'm going to use it to win. Because you know what will happen if you don't play like at a very high level? You're going to lose the game. We actually had that happen this week. A player decided that, well, I'm going to defend with everything I have. And he was ahead in the game. And the other guy just played calmly and went and took the win. Because if the level of play isn't high enough, you can't really exploit the timer like that. You need to be really good players. So I don't think this is going away because players get better, because we're talking about higher level players. I think we will see probably less times, but the same kind of problem, where the game is getting closer and closer and closer, and we're starting to see wins defined by timer play. And that's what I think is the problem, because it's still a skill game. Like, it's still a balanced game. Like, a lot of people think that, oh, we won by timer, that's, like, less worthy or something like... No. That's all nonsense. It's still a balanced game. Everyone is playing under the same rules. It's a fair game. Anyone that wins because the other guy spent too much time deserves the win. That's not the conversation. My only point here is that we will start seeing more games that are defined by the timer, where both players, experienced players that know what they're doing, can make the decision, well, I'm going to start using the timer to get the win. That's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, and I think that's all right. So about that, like, I don't think it's a bad thing having a win being decided by the chess clock. I think it's kind of a negative when people forget about it and then it just suddenly brings a stop to the game. Like, that kind of affects viewer experience at least. But the thing is, when the chess timer becomes like closer and closer, from a viewer's perspective, the tension goes higher, and from a player perspective too. And I think that having a game end due to the chess timer isn't that bad. And honestly, like, having a different, like, reasons to end the game isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that people aren't used to it yet. So that's the point I was making about people getting better at it, is that people will start, like, thinking a little bit about the chess clock while they think about the game state.
I agree with all that you said. None of that is my problem with it. The two parts that I feel discomfort.
If you have a problem with it,
the two parts I have the
you don't like it.
No. Like, as I said, it has nothing to do with balance. The two problems that cause me discomfort is players playing around the timer, because that's introduced by the community, right? It's not something that's intrinsic to the game. It's a ruling that changes the way some games occur. That's the first part, obviously. And the second part, it's a little more abstract, which is the concept of, like, because we're forcing the games to finish, we're getting less comebacks, for example. There are certain other kinds of games that disappear. And that I honestly don't know if it's healthy for the game long term.
So I don't necessarily agree with the points you just said, but for the sake of argument, I'll just pretend I agree with them and say that it's just a different, like, I'll just say some people aren't gonna like that, but I do, so I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about liking or disliking. I'm talking about the design, and you're talking about opinions. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Right,
So-
can we agree not to come back to chess clocks now?
I mean, can I finish on something that's like a bit more positive in general? Is that one of the things we're going to be doing because like I don't like the idea of Groove of War being this kind of like I don't know, like oversight over the entire community, like competitive side anyway. Like I don't like the idea of us being like in this shadowy dungeon somewhere, like pulling the strings on the entire competitive community. I don't want us to be the only people running events out there. And I think one of the things I really want to see, because it is like ultimately like a lot of what people's feelings towards chess timers are always going to come down to like personal feelings. Like that's like the main thing. And you can have like a lot of objective stuff, and you can say, oh well, it forces the game to be like to turn into this, and that is completely valid. Like I'm not going to argue against that. Like it is genuinely like I think it's a shame when we see games that are very close and could go either way come down to something that is like arguably like like an outside factor. No, it is in the game, but yeah, like I get what you mean. Like it was introduced to essentially like make our job easier as like tournament organizers, and like it also is good for lots of people because a lot of people like playing under like different types of timers. Like my point is that I want to see like a bunch of different people try a bunch of different things, and I want to see everybody support those different things. So when Groove of War 4 is like a bit further on the way, and like we're getting to the point where we're in like the top 8 or something, there's going to be loads of people that are like, oh, I love watching this Groove of War tournament. I wish there was something for me to enter right now. And we'll be able to like point people towards that stuff and say like, here's stuff you can go and play in. And they'll be doing different formats. And yeah, and like I do hope that we see a time when they add like different timer options. Like I know they like probably couldn't get it in because it's a bit extra work, but something like having a pool of time that you can get, like you have like kind of like a chess timer, but like you get time each turn, so you don't just immediately lose when your chess timer runs out. So like you get an extra 30 seconds or something on top of like a 15-minute pool. That's just an example. Someone's gonna be like, that isn't how chess timer works, and then just be like, no, like please stop talking to me.
I like that idea, and I like what you're saying, that there's other people and other groups that'll run events, and like personally, I almost want to see that 100% asynchronous event that has 1 day, 2 day turn timers or whatever it is, that you have you get a whole 24 hours to make your turn, and I want to see like, I guess it's the reverse of a task run and a speed run. It's like the reverse of that, where it's a human trying to make the exact perfect move. I mean, I guess it's the same thing as a task run in essence, but anyways. I want to see two people at the top of the skill game making the perfect moves the entire game, and the game evolving from that point. Obviously, you can't really do that with turn timers because you have to take turn timers into account. But in synchronous play, you can take the strategy game and you can say, I had all the time in the world to think about this play, and we're the two best players in the world. Let's see how this game develops. So I think that's kind of a cool idea. It's just, there's plenty of space to do that. And you're kind of right that it feels like not necessarily that we're starving out other competitive events as Groove of War. It's just that there's not really anybody else taking the initiative to make such an event.
I disagree. I think it's a problem of size. The community, it's a small community. Like you can't really have 2-3 tournaments running at the same time.
No, we say this, but there is Skidza. Skidza has a tournament going over there, and they have completely different rules from us, and they have a completely different meta than us. And like they have no commander bans except Merciful in their things, and they're playing on maps that some people in this community would say are complete trash.
Okay, I'll say it. Those maps are trash.
Not all the maps, but yeah, there's like 1 or 2 good maps from what we see. But that doesn't mean that their tournament is any less valid.
Yeah, it's still a tournament. Like there's a rule set that people are playing under, and like it's it's a fair tournament. Like, I'm gonna put that in quotation marks, where like everybody's playing under the same rule set. So like,
I mean, they didn't choose some of the worst maps. They didn't like choose like, vanilla Rambling Range, which has a 100% player one win strategy. There's nothing like that. But even if they did, I'm pretty sure as tournament organizers, they would replace that map if they realized it was such a problem.
yeah, and like Bazik, I think. I mean, I'm gonna like respond to what you just said, even though I didn't really let you finish. But like, you're saying that we can't really support, like, a community can't really support like a multiple tournaments at the same time. And I think you're right in terms of like, while the Swiss rounds are going on and while we're in the early stages of Groove of War 4, nothing else can really flourish because it is very dominating. Like, it is very much everybody's playing every week and people want to practice for that.
That's not really the full extent of the problem. Like, the main problem that I found trying to organize a Groovy Commander tournament was that, like, I came from like, people in this community have no idea what it is to, and when I say no idea, if they are in contact with some other communities, they'll have idea of how it is. But like in Groove of War, I don't believe there's like the actual practice regiment that you'd get in some other tournaments. Like when I played StarCraft 2, like I practiced 6 hours a day, like every single day, to practice like at a national level. And like, to me, I like to have a small tournament, like 4, 5, 6 hours maybe, something that I can do in an afternoon, and I go and play my game, and just do that. And in this community, it's hard to find like 5, 10 people that are willing to do that. Like most people, I don't want to call them casuals because like they play every day, but in terms of competitive tournaments, they kind of end up being casuals, and that means that the only kinds of tournaments that you can support are the kinds of tournaments you have been doing, and there's a reason why you have been doing it like this, like the TYMs where you do async and people have a month to play their games, like. And it's not a problem. It's just the kind of community we have. And if you try to support more tournaments, you kind of don't have enough players. Like you kind of just.
I would disagree with you on like the idea that we couldn't do something like a single day event, because originally we wanted to, but I think the main issue you run into there is that Wargroove just takes longer than most games, so fitting everything into a single day is really difficult. I think that's what it
fitting an 8-player tournament in a single day is easy. Like, it's actually easy.
I mean, it's easy, but that requires one. Yeah, but it's sort of what you said, Bazik, there, that 8 players have to agree that they need to take this day off.
Yeah, exactly. Like 6, 8 hours in a row, 8 guys. Like in this community, it's super hard to find.
Now, I'm gonna say this. I mean, this is not necessarily even a Wargroove related issue. This is just the genre related issue, the turn-based strategy genre. That. It's not like StarCraft or FPSs or any of these other kind of games where you need twitch reflexes. Like
Fighters,
the reason why,
whatever.
Yeah, the reason why I like turn-based strategies is because I have time to think and plan on it on my turns and make my decisions. And there's a lot of, I don't have to rely on the fact that I know how to 360 no scope in order to be good at the game. And that just brings a different kind of player in.
But it's
to me,
to avoid that the tournament is like 8 players.
I get what you're saying. It's just, I think that's just a thing of the strategy or the turn-based strategy genre in general, that you'll have slower-based players, and you also have a smaller community because it's not like an instant gratification sort of game genre.
I think that's a completely different conversation, though. But like, I think
it is, but I think it relates directly into the fact that you say like we have a small player base, and yes, I think that's more of a problem. I think that's more of a symptom of the main problem. Then that's what the main problem is, that TBSs have small player bases because of this, and the reason why we have a small player base is because we play in a game in a turn-based strategy. I think that's all related personally.
It's definitely related. I wouldn't disagree with that. That was not what I was saying. Like, what I was saying is that you can't really hit a critical mass to organize smaller tournaments to happen in between the rounds of Groove of War, because you can't really
that
find
was
the
kind
people
of
to.
what my point was going to be, though, was that like you're not going to be able to do something while we're in the Swiss rounds, but once we hit top 8 and more people are just kind of available, because a lot of people won't be practicing for their matches because they won't be in the tournament, and there won't be like between the time top 8 starts, and nobody who's listening take this as like gospel, but between the time we start top 8 and the start of the next Groove of War tournament, that's like a month, 2 months, probably, like somewhere between those, like that amount of time.
But guess what? The players that are the best players in the community are the players that show up for these tournaments. The ones that are likely to qualify for that top 8, the ones that will keep playing, those are the guys that are willing to spend the time. So they will still not be available. That's not really the problem. The problem is more the rest, like the rest of the community. They're just not willing to spend, like, the idea of spending like 4 hours in a row, like committing to 4 hours in a row, is completely outside of what they expect out of the game. And that's not a bad thing. Like, I'm just talking in terms of if you want to organize a tournament.
But that sort of relates back to what I was saying. It's just sort of a symptom of the genre. You know, how many truly big turn-based strategy competitive scenes are there? Maybe Pokemon is the one I can think of, and that's not even based on the strategy level that's at the game.
Civ has one, but
I mean, it does have a big community, but I don't think that's related to the balance of the game. There's a lot of problems, apparently. I'm not a member of that community, with the competitive nature of Pokemon. So that's just sort of where I'm going with on that. I think that's just a symptom of the genre that we can't really deal with. That, once again, you just have a smaller portion of players who are willing to participate in this genre, and even in a smaller portion of those players who are willing to put in the time and dedication it takes to be truly good and play the game at a high level.
I do think that even in bigger communities, it's hard to get people into a single day event now, though. And as someone that used to play in StarCraft tournaments back in the day, like, I hated single day online cups. They were really unenjoyable for me personally.
Those were the norm.
They were the norm, but you compare what the numbers were then to what they are now. I mean, like, the ESL cups get decent turnouts, but a lot of people don't play in them. Like, if you look at the ESL, I mean, we're going completely like on a tangent here, but like the ESL Korea tournaments, like, a lot of the really good players don't play in those because they would rather play in something like GSL and get their qualifier points through that. And that's a tournament that's closer to what we do with Groove of War, where people play their one match a week or something.
But it has to do with the money equation.
Sure, but it also comes down to, I think, players at a serious high level prefer having more time between rounds to practice.
Sure. Don't get me wrong. Like, the main reason why most games have 1 or maximum 2 day tournaments isn't because the game is better for that, or Twitch reactions, or whatever. The reason is because most of these games that today are settled are games that have been created in a time where tournaments were at LANs. And if you were organizing a LAN tournament, that meant you had to organize the whole tournament in a weekend. Like, you didn't even have the option of organizing it over a month. Like, it had to happen over a weekend. So they were forced into that system, and people just got used to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, because if you look at something like League of Legends, for example, like, I don't follow League that much, but my understanding is that they play matches.
It's weekly.
Yeah,
It's weekly. It's
and
like
actually
soccer.
Overwatch as well. They do the same
Yeah,
thing
Overwatch
because
is
it was a new
exactly
game.
the same. Yeah.
and
No,
they
it's
had,
better
like,
for spectatorship and like viewership is much better if you do it weekly, stuff like that.
Yeah,
No,
So-
in terms of tournament, if you can do a multi-weekend tournament, for example, or multi-week tournament, I mean, it's just better for the tournament. That's not my point, like at this at all. Like, I'm not talking about the specific quality of the tournament. I'm saying that if you want to do a small thing, like you kind of need to put in the time. Like it's
yeah.
hard to spread out like a small tournament over a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, there was something we were talking about doing, which, I mean, hell, might still happen. I don't know. Like, part of me wants to do it myself. Part of me wants to let someone else come in and do this. But the idea was that we would have something where people could schedule their own matches, and it would start around the time Groove of War was like hitting top 4, for example, and that would run until the start of the next Groove of War, and it would like kind of cycle like that. Although I guess the issue there is it's just a huge amount of manpower that's required.
Yeah, it increases the work a lot. Like I've been trying to figure out how to make my tournament run over a week instead of just a single day. And it increases the amount of work exponentially, and what you get out of it decreases almost by the same amount. Because if you start organizing stuff around the players, suddenly, and you know this exactly, like you can't be present for everything. Like, because they'll organize for a schedule that in the middle of the night, and the next day, like the other organized to 12 hours different. Like, you know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Groove of War 3, I was awake for 20 hours straight.
Exactly.
I got 5 hours of sleep, and that was, in those 5 hours was when someone needed a tournament admin, and I wasn't available.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I think we're pretty far off topic. I mean, I don't even
we
remember
derailed.
what bracket we're on at this point. I mean, is this
We were
podcast?
talking about Math versus Suzaku.
Yeah. Let's go back to the brackets.
Math versus Math. No, that's round 2 GMT.
Yeah, round 2 GMT.
Versus Suzaku. I think we all agreed that I'm 100% correct. That and I don't want to hear any backtalk on this. That Alsame lost because he wasn't prepared. Obviously, that was it. Nothing to do with timers. Timers aren't even a thing. Remember that?
I'm gonna give a different answer, and I hope you agree. Alsame Suzaku lost because he was the worst player that day.
Shh. All right.
Okay.
What other match do we have? Because there are
other good
a lot
matches.
of matches in
Important matches. We have Sejun versus Vito.
We have Ash versus Captain Rainbow too.
Yeah, Ash versus Captain Rainbow.
Actually, I think, just as a kind of funny footnote, Spacefront versus Bazik.
that
was a lot closer than it needed to be.
Yep.
Oh yeah, let's bring out how like Bazik just likes to completely almost pull time keys over here.
But not really, just almost.
Yeah, you would have lost if your opponent found the pike crit.
If he had played just slightly better, he would have won. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. 1 HP headquarter survivals are a real thing.
It's a real thing in Groove of War.
RNG is a strategic existence.
But the way he played that play, for real, the way he played it, he was actually lucky to get to 1%. But he could have played the turn before better, and he could have guaranteed a headquarter kill.
Yeah, I think, like, we're joking about the 1% survival, but I actually think he got a high roll to get that.
He got high roll to get there, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Because he made a mistake. He should have attacked with the pikes in the reverse order, and he would have got double pike crit in the turn before. And because he didn't reverse the order, he didn't get the crit. So he actually had to be super lucky to get there. And he ended up getting to 1%.
I guess this is a nice footnote about RNG, because like when you're behind, you kind of like you can decide to go for, like the player that's behind has more incentive to go for like RNG kills than the player who's ahead.
And also, if you think, even if you're in an even game, if you think you're the inferior player that will eventually get behind, you're also more likely to take risks if you see an opportunity to win the game, even if it's a bit random.
Okay, yeah, but then there's players like me who decide to take RNG gambles, and I listened to the cast that you guys did of my game, just like, look at this guy rolling for that sword crit on that village, you know, and like, yeah, man, some of us want to go for that gamble, so you know, it doesn't matter if you're ahead or not ahead, you know, some of us just like to
living on
play
the
odds. Yeah, you know, that 100 gold swing, you know, it can matter.
But we'll get there.
Whether or not I can afford a dog or a spearman.
We'll get to PST. We'll get to PST. Let's finish this. So no one wants to say anything about Sejun Vito?
It was interesting that Sej didn't get banned.
Yeah. It was. I think it was like Sej was pretty favored in this game.
I wasn't expecting that because I thought because Vito was a very well-known player from GoW War 3, I was expecting them to have prepared more. But after seeing the match, I think Sejun, like, he won handily.
Yeah, but if you know a bit of context, like you would know that Vito didn't really play competitively for a big while, and he basically the only reason he decided to join GoW War 4 was because suddenly, because of the whole pandemic, he had a bunch of time on his hands. And which is what ties into the conspiracy that GoW War.
And don't go there, don't go there. This is a podcast.
It's a meme.
Okay, we all agree Sejun was the best player in the game, and he won, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, like
Vito. If you had a bit of insight, you'd favor Sejun there.
Yeah,
I mean,
Vito...
I agree with that. I just think Vito was he underperformed. I still expected Sejun to win, but I was expecting a closer match. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think Vito overextended a lot.
It was memorable. It was memorable.
Yeah, and then actually, I will say that like one thing that really stuck out to me about this game was Sejun's great at balloon surrounds, and this is a good example.
The dragon surround at the start. Oh, glorious!
Oh yeah,
that was glorious. That's one of those plays you see, and you just have to smile. Like, it's
yeah, because
beautiful.
the way it was set up as well is it looked like Vito got a free punish. On like he just like killed a spear that had nothing. There was no like follow up. Like there wasn't a mage or anything near it, and then you think, oh, it's like a free spear, and then suddenly the dragon's surrounded, and there's nothing to break the dragon out, and then the punish happens, and
it was beautiful.
Like, yeah, that's the kind of play that we don't really see too much yet, but Sej is very good at.
Absolutely. So
now,
GillSauce, go ahead.
I will say, Vito was second place in GoW War 3.
Yep.
And I mean, I actually haven't played that many games with him. I played a lot of 2v2s with him, but I consider him to be honestly a pretty good player. But I don't think he's like a what's the term for it?
You mean top
instinctual player? No, he's an instinctual player. I feel like he just sees the situation and he bases his decisions on a turn-by-turn basis on what he has to do. So I think he's pretty good in that situation where he just takes a turn-by-turn basis and makes his decisions in the now. And I don't think he practiced enough. I mean, I know he practiced with time key and such, but honestly, I have to agree with what you have to say, Bazik, is that he completely underperformed. When I didn't watch the match live, but I watched it later. When I saw him, he ballooned Elodie right between the two barracks and the tower.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is he doing? What's going on?
I think the game was over at that point. Like before that happened, I felt like the game was already over.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe from
the casket, yeah.
Yeah, maybe from like from an outside view, but for me as a player who's just watching it sort of casually, it felt like he's not even trying to come back. He's almost suiciding. Why doesn't he just resign at that point?
Yeah.
Is sort of how I thought. Like he had a choice. He had Elodie, and he had a chance to potentially make, especially with something like Elodie, who's an underused commander and has a chance to change the game. A pike crit on a commander that you've mind controlled can win you the game. So I feel like he didn't make the right decisions in that time, and I feel like he underperformed, and he won against Ashe in Caesar Mirrors, and I consider like Ashe the best Caesar player.
Maybe 6 months ago. Should we talk about Ashe, Captain Rainbow?
Well, maybe that's the next point, because that's the next game.
That's a good transition. And I'm telling you, like, Captain Rainbow is just getting upset after upset.
Captain Rainbow, I think, is overperforming. And I think Ashe, if we're talking about underperformers, I think he might be the king this week.
I think
no one knew what he was bringing because he had a DQ first week. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if I wanted to go into this a bit, I would say, like, going back to Veto and then looking at Ashe, like, they're definitely, it feels like they haven't progressed out of 1.3's meta. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yep.
I saw Ashe making nothing but spears, and that is not how you win games anymore.
I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if I learned that Ashe didn't play a single game before the tournament.
I know he definitely played some for the show match series we did. Like, he did do a little bit of practice ahead of time, but I don't know how much he's been playing outside of that.
I think there's something on record that said that pretty much Ashe said something along the lines that given unlimited time, he thinks he could beat anybody in Wargroove in general.
Not a puzzle game.
Yeah, that at any given turn, like he determines that he could win. If he had unlimited times per turn, he thinks he could beat everybody every turn.
That's very arrogant.
But I honestly don't disagree with them. From what I know of him, he's a grandmaster or something of that sort in chess. I don't know the terms. But once again, you don't have unlimited time. And we saw this in this tournament situation that he was given a limited time to think. And I think that was another discussion. Maybe it was you, Bazik, or
I've discussed this topic at length a lot of times. It might have been me.
Yeah, that he was just like every single turn in like his in the stalemate match that we talk about. He evaluated the entire board state every single turn, and that took him like playing 6 or 7 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, before moving anything.
In Groove of War 1, he streamed his games, and it was exactly like that. He would evaluate the whole board before starting to move. Because he might need some unit for a different play in another side of the board, for example.
And it's not a bad decision. Honestly, I really respect that. I think that's like kind of a really cool way to play. I think that's kind of a loops back to what I was saying about the completely asynchronous tournament.
The one turn a day tournament. I mean,
I think there's some merit in that because I want to see that sort of play, and I want to see it sped up because I don't want to watch it live, obviously.
Yeah.
But in this chess timer tournament, you realize that you are put into a certain situation, and you have to follow by those rules. And I think in this particular circumstance, especially versus Captain Rainbow, and watching him take so long on his turns, I think he was not ready for this rule set.
But I think where it falls off a bit is there's a kind of important discussion about this kind of thing where at some point you need to make a decision if the kind of game you want to play is a succession of puzzles or an actual competitive 1v1 game. Because as soon as the statement that Ashe is making is essentially I can solve every Wargroove puzzle given enough time. And I don't disagree with that statement. That might be true. It might be the case that given enough time, he can solve every single puzzle. The problem is that what game are you playing at that point? You're just playing extremely complex Sudokus at your leisure. You're no longer playing Wargroove. You're playing a different game.
I think we might be blowing things out of proportion there.
How so?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think I'm getting at this is Ash is in fact Batman, and given enough time and resources, will.
No. I'm just using his own statement, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, even if that's true, what I'm saying is, even if that is true, is that of any value for us? Right? Because that's not what we want. I do not care if, like, for example, it comes back to the Master of Math Alsame match, where, well, he wasn't prepared enough, and if he had enough time, maybe he could have gotten there. But that's not those were not the rules, right? The rules were, like, the map came 1 week before, and you had a week to prepare, and then when it came the day, those were the rules. You had a 30-minute chess, and now you go and play. And whoever comes out on top is the winner, and we regard that player as being the best that specific game. Like, these are all a set of rules that were imposed to all the players from the start. If you change some of the core rules, in this case, the amount of time you have to play, in this case, not only the single turn, but the whole match, then you're just playing a different game at that point. Like, you're just arguing, oh yeah, if I played a different game, then I would have been the best. Sure, that might be true.
Now I want to take this because I had to, like, look up the statement that I was quoting from him based on his thing, and it's the thing I just posted in chat, that he said, my general strategy in Wargroove is to just equalize the board state as quickly as possible, because once I remove the variables of capture phase, I'm confident I can win. I think most of my loss cons come from the initial turns. If I could play my matches on a flat map with all the properties already captured, I'd prefer it to my chances of winning.
Okay. Which is now a lot better than the what we had before.
Than what I said. And, like, I get it. And I respect him for that. I honestly think it's true that given an equal board state situation, I think Ash will win, like, the majority of games that he plays.
I think that's time constrained. I don't think that's true for every time option that you have. If you put him in Blitzgroove, that statement just stops being true.
True, and that's but once again, these are preconceived notions of what our tournament rules are, and based on what the average person thinks that our rules, or agrees with our rules.
I think Ash is a clear example, and I really like Ash. Don't get me wrong. Like, I really like him, and during Groove of War 1, I talked with him quite a bit, and I joined his Discord, and I watched all his games. Like, I'm not talking like, oh, I don't like the guy, or like, that's not my point at all. The only thing I'm defending here is that, like, the rules were established, like, they were written, everyone knew them, and then the players came into the games, and he lost, and now anyone that tries to say, like, well, if things were different, then he might have won, like, I think it loses all meaning. Because then you're just saying, well, if something was different, then the world would be different. If, and you just lose everything. Like, you basically are talking about nothing at that point.
I just want to say that, like, Ash has this weird thing surrounding him, and it's not really to do with him at all, where everybody loves talking about Ash, like, a lot.
Probably because he was
you'll find more conversations about Ash and his thoughts on things around people that have nothing to do with Ash than you will find, like, Ash talking. It's like this weird Ash factor where, like, everybody likes talking about Ash and his thoughts on things, but
he doesn't talk that much.
He set the precedent, right, for winning Groove of War 1?
Yeah, he was the first one.
So he does have that, not that we're going to talk about sociology here, but he has that sort of effect on all of us because he was the first person to win, and so we sort of respect his opinion. He took the game first. He saw the game and the game as it was in its state, and won it from the state that the game was in.
And very convincingly.
Now we've changed the variables, and maybe he's not good in that particular state, or maybe he's not the best in that particular state, but it doesn't stop us from all thinking, oh yeah, he won our initial thoughts of how this game is played. And not that, I mean, I'll be honest, I did not watch Groove War 1 tournaments, but from just the results, I'm like, he has some sort of clout when it comes to talking about how the game should be played, because he was the one who won it initially.
Don't get me wrong, I was here, like, I played the first 2 months of the game after release, and I joined immediately the Groove of War community, and then I stopped playing and returned in January this year. But I was here during the first Groove of War, and he was, like, I don't think this is too much. I think he was, head and shoulders above everyone else. Like, he was clearly the favorite to win. Like, he became very good at the game very, very fast. And I think that created this persona that a lot of people respect.
That's fair. I mean, it's just kind of funny because, like, you look at it from the outside of, like, nobody talks this way about Zeronix or Red Jams, even though they've both won Groove of War events.
Exactly. That's totally true.
But Ash has, like, is there something about him that people, I don't know, it's kind of like almost like revere his opinions to an extent.
It's also the way he talks, right? Like no one makes the statement like, how did he say exactly? Yeah, because once I remove the variables of capture phase, I'm confident I can win. Like, he's just saying, like, well, if you change these two things in the game, I know I'm gonna win. I don't care whoever's in front of me. If you change these two things, I win. Like,
he's very confident without being.
That's a persona.
Exactly condescending. Okay.
I think it's a bit condescending and arrogant. To be honest.
I mean, if you have to ask me on the spot, who do I think is better, Zeronix or Ash? I mean, I've never played Ash, but I know Zeronix is like a god at this game. All right, I've played him, and he is just disgustingly good. He was. He hasn't played recently. He disqualified Groove of War 3 because he had like life issues come up and he couldn't play. But just from what he knows, he's like the top 10 players in Advance Wars by the web. The only non Chinese player on that. And he's honestly extremely good. He just understands everything from a quick glance. And I played on a match with him once, and on like turn 4, he surrendered. He said, I'm already behind, I'll never win.
Nice.
And I'm like, what? This was on Merchant Mountain. Not that, I don't know if you guys have played that map, but like I just had performed the capture phase correctly and he didn't. And he said, I lose. Surrendered. And that's the kind of player he is. That's like, to me, he's that far ahead of us. Anyways, we should really go on to the next match. So, I think Ash.
Have we actually even talked about this match? Like, I don't think we've actually spoken about what happened. Because for all of the talk of timers, like the timer, it didn't run out. It wasn't even close to running out.
It had nothing to do with the timer that game.
Like, what happened, to my understanding, is Ash made a bunch of spears at the start of the game and didn't really make swords.
Yeah. The thing is, Ash had like 4 spears by turn 3 or something, and basically he had his commander trying to defend the HQ and the villages around it with like only like a few units backing it up, and well, Captain Rainbow or Rika was was basically winning the other side of the map, and he just
won.
he just had the collapse on the HQ and he won.
I honestly think Ash just played the map super poorly, and that's why I say that I rather believe it's that kind of thing. Like, I rather believe he never played a match. Like, he never actually entered the map. Or if he did, he was on his own like 2 times before the game started. Because he played the map so, like, wrong. Like, he had no chance of winning against any kind of decent player. Like, and I'm not saying Captain Rainbow played poorly or well or whatever. I'm saying, like, the way Ash played, a good player would not allow that to go. Like, there's no way Ash was going to win that match. And it's honestly sad. Because we're talking about one of the greats of this game, right?
Yeah, I was watching that match live, and it's just, I don't know, by turn 3, I pretty much would have, in my head, I said, if this was me versus him, I would have won.
He was dead, yeah.
Normally, I wouldn't think that, but I'm like, the first few turns, like, honestly, the first, other than turn 1 where he built swords, like turn 2 and 3, he just built spears, and I'm like, okay, I won.
Yeah, he was dead.
Because he's still stuck in this meta where spears are so overvalued. And there's points where he talks about spears being even value at 350 gold and such like that. And I'm like, so he has this preconceived notion about the strength of spears. But I think that's what lost him is the game is less about skill and, like, as you said, it's about his experience on it that he just built spears, and maybe his experience in general with 2.0 Wargroove where you just build spears.
I don't think the problem is just that he's playing old Wargroove. Like, that map is genuinely bad to make spears right at the start of the game. Like, you want to make spears like turn 5, turn 6. The first few turns, you'll watch every good player make a knight. Some will make an early golem, like 2 knights, because you need your stuff to reach the middle of the map really fast. Because if you don't, the other commander just runs you over. Because you don't have your commander to defend. You have one commander on each side of the map. So you need those strong, fast units to control the map. And there was a lack of understanding of that fact by Ash. Like, he just didn't see it. So he went for spears at the start, and he just allowed Captain Rainbow to run over with a match. Like, Captain Rainbow had like 2/3 of the map under control by turn like 6 or 7. There was no way Ash could recover from there.
I feel like what you're saying though about, like, you don't make spears early on that map. I think you don't make spears early on pretty much every Groove of War map.
On a lot of maps, yeah, but not all.
Maybe not all.
You're gonna see early spears next week on Before the Flood, for example.
Shh! Don't say it.
Yeah,
I don't think you'll see that level of, like, heavy spear play.
Oh, no. That heavy spear play is 1.3. That's over. Like,
yeah.
Double spears every turn for 4 turns in a row. Yeah, that's over.
I think the beta testers of 2.0 actually achieved their objective, at least in that regard, is that spears are not, like when I'm stuck, I'm like, when in doubt, I'm like, build a sword because I have nothing else to afford. But it's no longer when in doubt, build a spear, and that completely changes the game.
I think like from the mid game forward, you kind of can fall into making a spear when you don't know what to make. But early on, that's just false. Yeah, like there's that's good parts of the game.
I don't really agree with just like making a spear when you don't know what to do because like you need to carry the spear somewhere. So. But if the spear walks on its own for like 5 turns, you might have as well made a dog.
We're assuming you make your strategy around the spears you're making.
Yeah, but before you didn't have to do that. That was the thing. You could just literally just perform a line of spears that would move 3 pieces every turn, and it would just
conga lines through the map.
Yeah, conga line spears through the map. So
no, we don't have that anymore.
And honestly, that is. I mean, I know people will talk about trebuchets a lot, but I feel like the spear change has opened up way more options than, say, the trebuchet. And I think trebuchets aren't as bad as, say, Treb Balloon, but I think that's probably a topic for a different day.
And it's hard to have that conversation because we don't have the maps for it, so no one actually knows.
Yeah. So I think we are. I mean, I think most of us are in agreement here. Correct me if I'm wrong. That Ash sort of lost because he was stuck on a older meta of the game, and he thought that he could just spam spears early on, but that lost him a lot of tempo, which I know is a meme here.
He was playing
lost him a lot of tempo.
Yeah.
What
that
do you
he
mean
has
exactly by tempo?
Hey.
Oh no, please no. I don't want to go into like a semantics discussion.
But either way, he spent a lot of spears, which are good in general, and they used to be good because the tempo loss you built from using a slow unit would be recovered from the strength of them. But now, the tempo loss you gain from the opportunity of not building a higher tech unit now counteracts the spears.
Yeah.
Yes, spears are still good, and you will ask Shu or any other good player here that spears are still good, but if you're behind in the early and mid game, you'll be behind in the late game no matter how many spears you have.
I mean, actually, just to go back to the match before, Sedron used spears excellently, and he made quite a few of them. And he just used them very, very well. So, yeah, they're a very good unit, and people should still be making them.
They're still incredible units.
Yeah, but yeah, this isn't 1.3. You can't just build lots of spears in the early game.
But the funny thing about that is, honestly, I don't think that's completely on the cost increase. That's a bit on the cost increase, like the early game part especially, because you simply don't have money to make like double spears as soon. Like before, at 150, turn 3, you could start spamming double spears. Now you can't because you don't have enough money for it. But the maps are just better at dealing with mass spears. You no longer have as many spots on the map, or having a bunch of spears is a good thing. And like all of these things together have made the spears a unit where you still want to have them, and you usually want to have a few, but if you make too many, you just lose the game. And it's definitely healthier than it was before.
But I think that has almost completely has to deal with the fact that they cost too much, and it has to, as I said, meme tempo plays. It has to do with the tempo of it. The fact that every spear you place is an earlier knight or mage or golem or whatever the heck is that you want to build that's more expensive. Because these spears are more expensive, their speed actually has a bigger effect on opportunity cost.
Absolutely,
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's totally true.
So yeah, spears are still strong, and there's still a value at 250 gold, but that value doesn't mean anything if you have an extra 200 gold or 300 gold a turn above your opponent because you proceeded to build better units than they did.
Yeah.
In the situation that called for it. Because you couldn't afford spears earlier. And they couldn't take those 6 turns of the capture phase that it used to take to capture everything. No, I mean, the capture phase is done quicker, and there's already units contesting villages earlier than that.
Yeah.
But that's just a whole meta discussion, which, once again, is probably not appropriate. And we should move on to another bracket.
Do you guys want to talk about any of these matches? I think the other matches are more or less expected.
I mean,
maybe
there was a couple. There's another PSA here as well of like someone thought they were meant to be playing on Friday, and for some reason I don't understand why, but they DQ'd out because they thought they were going to be playing on Friday. Actually, that might have been a different bracket, but like one of the DQs that happened this week was because someone, like we've had a couple of those, like someone showed up like yeah, someone had the time wrong slightly. It's just like, yeah, people like we had DQs, but like it wasn't because people don't care about the tournament. People were just like wrong day, wrong time, that kind of thing.
Oh, we still have something we can still talk about in this bracket is S Foggy Hills, the PS4 player that managed to get a win in, even though he's not able to play.
So this is a bit like it's a weird one because like if you can check in for your match but you can't play, like I would give them the DQ if their opponent showed up. But because they actually made the effort of like showing up and hitting the check-in button,
he deserved the win.
Yeah, like it is one of those like it's a technicality, but if you show up, you get a win. That's like the most important thing you can do. in any competitive thing or just like generally things in life, if you show up on time, then that's the most important thing. It's more important than anything else. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't show up, you still lose.
Yep.
Now, I will say on a side note, because I don't want to like dismiss some of these other players that were here in this game. Data Gloves and Paladin Fox. I'm not sure if I've played Data Gloves, but I've played Paladin Fox a few times, and I know he like works in the healthcare industry, and kudos to him during this coronavirus time. So honestly, it wasn't like the best showcase of games, but I think that as like sort of the unknowns, I think they both played pretty well considering, they're not one of these people that are like us, these people who just play this game all the time.
Yeah, but they're definitely two up-and-comers. There are two names that I've seen before.
Yeah, they're names I've seen before, but I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna win a game off me. I'm like, I expect them to maybe make a play off of an overextension I make. But I think it was I think that has a potential to be a good match. And I'm looking forward to look at some of these other players who showed up and are unknowns and to see how they grow in the community, honestly.
Every time I cast one of those games, if I remember, I try to remember, I try to at some point in the match just say like stuff like keep playing and come to the tournaments and gain the experience, because even if you don't show the results now, it's only through playing and showing up that eventually you will. Like you were saying, I don't know if you will take a game. Like maybe not tomorrow, but who knows in 3 months? Who knows in 6 months? Maybe in 3 months you'll no longer be playing, but maybe you will. And if these guys don't participate, then we know they'll never get there. But it's important for these players to actually show up and come to the tournaments, because it's not all about winning. It's also a lot about gaining the experience. And I think these matches, we're not really talking about them, but they're really important for the future of the community.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people like, for example, we casted the game the other day, and then one of the players came, once it was done, it came to the chat to ask
I think it's
like
Fraud
for
Run.
advice, and like, yeah, it was pretty nice. Like I see this in general. Like there's a lot of people that just want to improve and get better at the game, and I also see a few people that just don't know how to. When there's plenty of people that are open to giving advice when they play you and all this sort of stuff.
I'll also say one of the really nice things I've seen is a lot of people who show up, especially the newer players, and they get a win out because their opponent didn't show up. They'll always say, I just wanted to play, and then I'll always point them to someone else that got a buy or something, or like someone else that I know is available right then. I'll just be like, yeah, just like, yeah, go play these people because they also showed up and didn't have an opponent this week, or
yeah,
here, this person's available, you should play them, and like they'll give you some good advice.
That happened in round 2 with Headphone and I will be
ninja. I will be ninja.
I'll be ninja, not being you.
We should not talk about that match. There's a video. Go watch it on YouTube.
I think I watched it, but I mean, I'm sure we'll get to that. That's in 2 brackets away.
I don't know if we'll get to that. That's not a Groove of War match. That's a casual.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
But it is nice seeing that happen, like people coming in and just playing.
It was super fun.
I think even more so than say in like Tester Metal or like a casual match against a competitive player. I think that the tournament setting really helps people grow per se.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of times, even though if you lose, and I understand a lot of people have a lot of aversion to losing and getting upset, and yeah, it sucks, but the most you can ever learn from a game, and especially a strategy game in particular, is you can just stop and you can rethink everything that you did in that game, and you can wonder, what could I do to make it better? And it's such a huge point of improvement. You say, okay, well, that person took their soldier that way and captured this route, and why did that make sense? And then you think about the income they made, and you think about how they could get a knight earlier, and then they could crit kill your headquarters earlier, or whatever it is that you can do. There's a lot of thinking you can do from losing against a good player, especially in a competitive event, because some good players, when they're fighting newer players, they'll play like Merciful, like that DrKillSauce guy. They'll play.
That guy has no respect.
Yeah, they'll play Merciful, and they'll bad manners you, and they'll just sort of do whatever the heck they want, and they're not trying seriously. And in a lot of these games, when you're fighting serious players, and you're fighting, players who are, air quotes, good at the game, they're going to try their hardest to defeat you, even if you're like a newer player. And you can learn a lot from watching them, and then you can come up and surprise them. And the next time, maybe they'll underestimate you next time you're fighting them. And you get a win off that. And that's fair game to me.
And then they have made a time key and you have created an upset.
Yeah, exactly. So even if the game, it's like between two newer players, there's a lot to learn. And even if it's a game that's completely upset, not an exact opposite of an upset, just exactly how we expected it in round one, there's a lot you can learn from these players, as long as you're willing to ask. Humble yourself is the first thing. Humble yourself, and then either ask them what you did wrong or figure out yourself what you did wrong.
I think first and foremost, new players need to not to expect to win. They should expect experience. That's what they should be looking for. They should be looking for the experience of entering a tournament. How does it feel? Is it any different to quick play? Because they might not enjoy it. Like, it's completely fair. You might play a competitive game and go like, okay, this is too stressful for me. This is not for me. I don't want it. But you'll only know that if you participate. Now, you don't need to immediately go in a Groove of War, but pick a map on the next Test Your Metal, and you can go there. And that's like 4 or 5 matches. You'll have over a month to play as slowly as you want. There's nothing to be gained or to be lost. You just need to. You can just enjoy it, and you can play as slowly as you want it. But the only way for these people to start playing and to actually experiencing what they're watching is to actually go in. And sometimes that's scary, but my only advice to those guys is just that don't worry about losing. Just go in looking for the experience. Just go in thinking like it's just like any ride from a carnival or whatever. You don't know if you're going to like it. You're just buying a ticket and checking it out.
I will say that, like, of all the newer players I've spoken to, they've all had that attitude. Because, like, a lot of them were, when they get disappointed when their opponent didn't show up, and they're just like, I just want to play, and I want to have, and, like, a lot of them come into chat, like you said, on Twitch after and ask for advice. I think some people have probably gone into Discord and asked for advice.
Yeah, that guy was super cool, after the match that we streamed.
Yeah, it was really great to see that, and he really took everything on board. And, like,
Also,
I think...
Oh,
sorry, go first.
Yeah, Bazik was saying don't expect to win, but like the amount of upsets we've had, like just in the first 2 rounds, is quite huge. Like, you wouldn't expect that many to happen.
Yeah, but if one of these guys come in like before even knowing who they're playing, expecting to win, they're setting themselves up for disappointment, especially with the way seeds work in our tournaments.
Yeah. Shall we go into EST?
Let's go into EST.
So I guess like the first big match that happened was Mahinda versus D Inferno. And I wasn't casting any of the EST ones, so I mean you guys will be like the experts here.
Mohinder
was
the favorite.
Inferno just shows that Mohinder is actually becoming like quite consistent in what he does. Like
Solid
he just
player.
picked Valder, he just ran it down villages, he built an army, he had like his army of skeletons with Valder one side, he had another army on the other side. He just quite a dominant performance by Mohinder, and like he looks to be like one of the strongest players in the EST brackets. Well, consistency wise at least. Looking
yeah.
at you, Time Key.
Oh yeah, looking at this bracket, Mohinder is. I would say the most consistent players here are Mohinder, and probably Lewis, Barcenas, maybe CMA.
Yeah, the current standings are CM, Avelis, and Mahinder at top 2.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
Deliscore
Deliscore's
has been
underneath
performing,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, Deliscore got a win through a DQ, so that puts him at 3rd, I think.
Deliscore was if I remember correctly, was a game where Fraudbrand started going for the timer, and Deliscore, who is a more experienced player, played it super calmly and got the win. It wasn't a super high level match, but it was a really, really good match.
Yeah,
Almost
Deliscore
had a...
like.
Oh, sorry.
So basically, what happened was, Deliscore was playing quite solid, but he was falling a little bit into that situation where you spend too much time on your turns, and his opponent noticed that, and he tried to kind of get a win from the timer, but Deliscore still like quite convincingly closed it out, and perhaps like Fraudren could have defended better, but I like Deliscore is just knew what he had to do and went for it.
That was the opening with the surround, right?
Yeah, that was also a really interesting match for that, where Deliscore almost lost quite early in the game.
Yeah, because like there was a point when everybody was looking at that, and I think I noticed it first. Oh yeah, because I DM'd you, because everybody was like, "Oh, he's dead, he's dead." I was like, I clicked in my head. I was like, "Actually, no, wait. There's a way out of this, but it has to be done correctly." And I think it took Deliscore like 5 minutes to figure out how to get out of that trap.
Yep.
But I think one of the main thing I saw from Fraudbrand that he needed to work on was he kept skipping unit builds.
Yeah. We talked about it.
Yeah, you just can't do that.
He was the one that came afterwards to ask for
Yes.
advice, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what
Really cool
Fraudbrand does, like in the next round, because he was definitely taking all that advice on board, and he did have cool ideas with that surround as well. So I'd love to see like more from him, because he definitely has like ideas on like good plays. I think it's just a case of understanding some like fundamental things about how to play Wargroove, like when to skip unit builds and when not to. And that's like really, if he works on that, then he'll definitely be like a really serious contender.
Oh yeah.
Well, so we look at I think I caught the end of that match, and yeah, it just looked like a straight unit count disadvantage. So what your guys are saying about Fraudband skipping unit builds, I get that, and and he's making the right decisions. Rest of the brackets, JR Smash versus Asponius, Assisted versus R7000, Time Key. Well, the other two are disqualifications. Those are sort of unknowns. So I didn't. Honestly, I was kind of busy that day because this was EST, and I had a match later, so I didn't watch any of this. I was just practicing. So, did anybody watch this Junior Smash versus Aspanis?
I know we watched all the replays.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I don't recall any of the games.
Like I remember a bit of it. It was kind of interesting. Like you could see some of the players were like doing like different openings from what's like now defined as the correct ones. You could so it was definitely like it was playing out very differently from the higher levels. And to be honest, like if you, it's not necessarily the most interesting games to watch, but like if you want to, like they're definitely worth it. They're definitely still worth something.
Yeah, I think EST has the healthiest amount of new players. There's a lot of room to grow on EST.
Yeah, like once that time key guy starts like not losing his commander, he'd be very good.
Yeah.
I will say, like, this isn't specifically about the match, but something I noticed quite quickly when JR Smash came into the community, he was one of the people, and we won't go into the rule set discussion, but he was like, "Oh, why is Caesar not banned? He's clearly like broken or overpowered or too strong." And like, I don't know if that necessarily means that like someone who has that opinion is like a good player because like they understand what a strong commander looks like. But I am interested to see how far they go because there's like a level of like confidence you have to say an opinion like that. And like he wasn't completely wrong. There was a discussion. There was a discussion among staff of like this: should we actually consider banning Caesar? And we decided not to for a bunch of reasons. But like,
I can agree with that because I used to, back in 1.3, I used to meme. It's like if you want to determine if a player is good or not, you just ask them, "How do you feel about Tenri?" And if they said pretty much anything but that she seems extremely strong, then I'm like, okay, you don't understand the fundamentals of the game. And that was sort of like my personal opinion of it, but it sort of was, to me, was sort of like a telling sign. I'm like, should I think about what you have to say, or should I take it with a grain of salt? If you can agree that Tenri is strong, and you don't try to make this argument that there's counterplay to her, then maybe I can see it. And I agree with you that I think if anybody who can come in, especially an unknown, and can identify which commanders feel strong and which ones feel weak, I feel like that's a valuable skill if you're looking at what we consider the metagame to be, the metagame of Wargroove to be.
yeah, and it's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, this is like the best person ever. Like they clearly they think Caesar's overpowered, so they must be like an amazing god at this game. But it was interesting to note that like someone who had that opinion, and that's like the first thing I really saw them say. At least the first thing I saw them say that stuck in my mind, that they are now 1-1 in their bracket. I'm kind of curious to see how far they go. It's not much, but it is like more than like someone who I haven't really had a conversation with, saying anything, and like them essentially just being this new person that I know nothing about. But like this is a person that, not necessarily for like gameplay reasons, but I'm just interested to see how far they go. Just because like that one interaction keeps like a little note in my mind of that they were the person that said that. So
there are definitely like quite a few players where that I've just taken notice of, and I'm just really curious to see how they'll perform. For example, like you see Rika or Captain Rainbow. Like next week he's against Master of Math, and that's like a mountain to have to climb if he wants to
that
win.
would be a king upset.
But you know, you're just still curious to see how they perform.
It will make him look a bit like a worse player than he actually is, which is what happens when you play against a much better player than you in this game.
yeah,
This game tends to have that problem where after a certain distance of skill level, you just look stupid playing in front of the other guy. Because the other guy is just making stuff that stops you from playing, so you just look dumb. And I expect Master of Math to behave in that form against Captain Rainbow.
Yeah, I mean, but people aren't unbeatable. That's the other thing. Like,
Oh, of course
the
not.
last time I played Math, I beat him, and that was in Tester Metal. Like, I beat Shu a bunch of times. I've beaten Alsami. And I'm not.
There's one thing that's important. We're in a tournament. Everyone's nervous. So everyone makes mistakes. And everyone can lose.
So, yeah, like, people can beat other people. And I don't consider myself, like, a super top player by any means. But, like, I've taken games off all, like, the people that are, like, slated to win this event. So, yeah, like, people have to keep that in mind. Like, you can beat people. And this isn't me just bragging, by the way. This is, like, a legitimate, like, I think they're better players than me. And I can take games off them, so there's nothing stopping you from, like, doing it.
I think it's a bit different. Because these guys are much, like, a lot better prepared for these matches. Like, we've seen people practicing for the rounds in a way that is pretty much unheard of for the last at least 3 months, which is the time I've been here. Maybe people were practicing like this in GoW War 3, but not for this year metals.
I mean, yeah, I get it. I mean, I think you just the other day popped in one of my little streams is like, you practicing for the next event? I'm like, yep, that's what I was doing.
Yep. Everyone's.
But of course, I'm streaming out loud because I don't have anything to hide. I'm not trying to like cheese any strategies, but still.
And what?
I just gotta practice.
Is there a problem if you want?
Though. Like, I mean, like, sometimes people will just come up with plays like the GoW War 3 GoW War 2 finals had a couple of moments like that where Zeronix did some really calculated long-term strategies that he'd come up with, executed them perfectly, and just won. And if you had known ahead that was going to be what you're up against, you would have, like, the person in question, like their opponent, would have been able to like play around that and not lose. But like,
I think that circumstance happened on Cytosis in GoW War 3, where I mean,
Hinterland
it might not have been
hijinks, but sorry, I was thinking GoW War 2, but yeah. GoW War 3,
Hinterland hijinks. I know he played Valder and just like spam swords all day from hitting the gate. It was just disgusting. But in like GoW War 3, it happened on Cytosis, specifically with Nuru, where I don't remember the player's name. I think it was Mango. Had pretty much they took a game. They were an unknown, and they took a game off a well-known player by perfecting like a Nuru cheese on Cytosis.
Oh, I remember that.
Where they're just like, yeah, well, there's pretty much nothing you can do to stop me from summoning this trebuchet and critting your headquarters and keeping it completely protected and getting a 2-turn lethal on turn 7 with it, or whatever it was.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, and I say funny because it was kind of sad in a different way, where you watched that happen once, and everybody on Discord was talking about it, and then the people that hadn't been looking at Discords went and played their matches, and you saw like the occasional person let Nuru slip through, and like the one person who had seen this replay picked Nuru and did the strategy to someone that hadn't, and it just kept repeating a few times.
Yeah.
And there's like a level of importance of like, this is part of the reason why I actually really want most people just to play their matches without giving stuff away, is because like, and that's why a lot of them happen simultaneously and stuff like that, is because I want there to be a level of like, if someone prepares a strategy, I don't want people to have a large amount of like tournament match information that they can have access to, which I guess is like going to happen anyway, but it's not gonna, like, it's going to happen like 3 days in advance of everybody else's matches, and then like everybody will see that and prepare for it. Like, people have to do some level of adaptation, but yeah,
all
like
right.
PSD bracket. Is it time to talk about GoW?
No, that's got to be the last one, right?
There are only 2 games: Endement Faded And Shu KillSauce. Those are the only 2 games of PST. There
I
are 2
think
DQs and the buy.
Endement, actually, both of these games happened earlier than their brackets, right? Because Endement Faded happened. I don't even know that game went on.
Yeah, it happened the day before,
like,
I think.
A few days before.
Or something, yeah.
It happened early in the day, I think. They were both available because everybody's working from home right now, so...
Yeah. I have no insights into Endement Faded Sun. I have no idea
I
what happened.
haven't actually seen that match yet.
I probably saw it, like, through a replay or something, but I completely erased it from my mind.
I'm gonna go look at
I
least
don't
what the commanders
remember
were.
really well either, actually. But
Yeah, I haven't seen it at all, so I don't know what happened there.
So let's just assume Faded Sun played an amazing game and won.
I'm looking at the commander picks. It's a Ragnar win over a Mercia loss.
It makes sense. No, I don't need to say anymore. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I think actually just to like talk a little bit about the meta. I think Mercia is below Ragnar these days.
Mercia is not below. Like, I think Mercia is under appreciated right now. She's still good. The problem is Mercia on Gilgamesh. Please no. Like, that was one of the mistakes Ash also made. Like,
I can see that. I just think Ragnar has a really good.
Ragnar's really good on Gilgamesh.
Yeah, but in general, she has a good like, just a kill condition groove, which I think is always going to be strong.
Yep, that's what happened in my game versus Shu.
Like,
except it was the opposite.
yeah, he pulled the time key. It wasn't an actual time key, but you understood.
I almost want to just want to mute my headset for this. I don't even want to hear you guys talk about it because I think all 3 of you were casting. No, it was you, Saykoya, Bazik, and
it was me
Math
and Saykoya.
were.
And Matt
Was there too.
Matt was there too. Yeah.
So
I've already talked to you about this match. Like,
I mean, I've heard about this match. I've rewatched it. I determined the things I could have done better on it. I honestly think that I didn't have to do what I had to do on the time. I think that my win was me throwing and him not recognizing me throwing. And I won because of that.
He made a mistake that he couldn't make, and you won. It's that simple. And it's a mistake. Like, it's not a mistake, like a weird situation where in normal cases you wouldn't die, but because he didn't see a weird... No. He left Ragnar on the road. Like, if you watch I watched the VOD like twice already, because this match, I think it will be one of those matches after the tournament that I think people will still recall. And before his own turn end, like, Shu still had like a couple units to move, and we were already saying stuff like, why is Ragnar there? Why is Ragnar on the road? Maybe he should kill the knight. Maybe he should sack the dragon. What's happening? And then he died.
For first-time people here, there's like one of the few general rules of Wargroove is never put your commander on a road. Like, just never do it.
Because you take so much damage there. Like, don't.
I mean, it's even better if don't put them in a river or on a beach. But still, don't put them on a road.
Because it opens up so much, so many more kill opportunities. Like, it was weird. As I told you the other day, like, it was probably because you were both playing so fast, and he didn't analyze the play properly and just went for it.
And that's an interesting one. Of like, she was like, "I'll beat anyone at a chess timer because I just play really fast all the time."
And then he made a critical mistake and lost because of it.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. That's if you want irony, there you have it.
But oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going into that game, and like, I was legitimately like afraid because I've seen Shu play and I've seen how fast he moves, and I'm like, I legitimately went into that game and I practiced like my pressing the enter to, do my turns faster and all that, and I practiced trying to move fast because I'm like, I know I'm going to lose this Shu on time, but I need to keep up with at least some sort of I need to keep up pace with him at least reasonably, so he doesn't have infinite time in the world to think.
And that
So
probably
we were in
won you the
sense-
game.
Yeah, so we were both in sense playing like sort of pseudo blitz matches,
Yep.
and from the end of that, I feel like because I mean I think Shu's a better player than me, but I think that because of my example that I'm just more used to just playing without thinking than he is. I feel like I sort of got the advantage in that. I'm just like I didn't even look at the board. But when I watched later, you guys like you have such a huge unit count on him. I just looked at the board. I'm like I feel like I have an advantage. Let me just throw some units away and see if I can bait him into something that is an uncomfortable situation for him.
I also think, and I'm pretty sure not a lot of people agree with me on that. I've told this directly to Shu. I think he has a problem where, because he's so much stronger than a lot of the community, he's falling into this self-deception where he thinks that a lot of the stuff he's doing is good, and the reason why it's working, it's not exactly because it's the best strategy, but because he's so much better than the other guy. So the other guy just starts falling behind, and everything he does just works because, well, he's ahead. And I think a lot of what happened in your match was that he wasn't prepared for someone to be playing as fast as he was, because you weren't falling in time at all. Like, you were keeping pace with him, and that for sure threw him for a loop. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Like, he's probably used to using his opponent's time in his favor. So he plays very fast, and while his opponent is playing and spending quite a bit of time, he's looking at the plays and already planning ahead. But you didn't give him that time because you were also playing super fast. And I think this is made the match super interesting because you guys were playing Wargroove almost like if it was a different game, right? Instead of trying to solve a very large puzzle every single turn, like we were talking about earlier on Ash game, no, you were just looking at what you had and making small decisions very fast. A lot of small decisions. And
it kind of just becomes like an RTS at that point. To an extent.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, it gets closer for sure. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed that match.
Of course,
I
the
guess,
only complaint about all that is that the beginning of it didn't record properly.
Yeah, the
So
first
was that
five
kinda
matches,
laggy?
the first 5 turns, I mean, are super laggy.
Well, I think we also like kind of like Shu's kind of becoming the new Ash, where we're kind of starting to read too much into what he says, and because Shu is a bit different than Ash, and he just memes around quite a bit more. Suddenly, like, Pike Balloon Mage was the optimal strategy everywhere. When he was just memeing, like, and he clarified it afterwards. He just meant that when he autopilots, it's just a simple thing to do that works well with autopilot, but doesn't mean it's the best strategy.
I think Pike Balloon is like actually quite difficult to play against if you just don't know how to beat it, which is like another thing as well. Like, he used to do that in like 1.3 quick play, is he'd just go Pike Balloon all the time and just absolutely destroy people with it.
I have a lot of problems with it. I was talking. This is a bit of a tangent. I was talking about it to Saykoya the other day. Like, I think the biggest problem, like maybe for you guys that have been playing consistently for quite a while, this is not a problem. But for me, it is. Where the biggest problem I have with Pike Balloon isn't the power that the play itself transfers to the board. It's actually reading fronts becomes a lot harder. Because you're looking at the front and there's like... And that happened on my match. That's one of the reasons why I almost lost my game. Like, I looked at the amount of units he had in front of my headquarters, and he had like 4 units. And I went like, okay, I can move my stuff to the other side. I can keep attacking. Guess what? He enters his turn. He puts two spears into a balloon, moves them forward, and now instead of his attack with 4 spears is attacking with 6. And that completely changes the dynamics of that front. And analyzing the game, not only for what you have in the front right now, but also what's going to happen in the future, is something that is specific to the spear balloon meta. And it's a very interesting part of the strategy that is not present in the rest of the game. So
I think a lot of that comes down to like transports are very nerfed because of other reasons, like trebs are banned through people banning wheels, right? So we don't really see a lot of wagons, so people aren't used to playing against styles that involve switching fronts because we lock out a lot of units that can do that, right?
Look, but that's the thing. But wagons aren't as much of a problem because wagons won't only carry one unit. So the amount front grows every turn is more constant. The thing about the balloons is that they, especially when you're talking about small numbers, it grows really, really fast. You go like 2, then nothing happens. 4. Like, you don't go like 2, 3, 4. No, you go like 2. Okay, this is fine. Nothing's happening. And suddenly, it's twice the size.
Alright, so Bazik, I have a piece of advice for you. If you have trouble dealing with pike balloon, you just need to practice and get better at dealing with pike balloon.
Thank you. You're a genius.
Whoa, just build mage. Whoa, free balloon.
By the way, I know how to deal with it. That's not what I'm talking about.
It's a part of the game. Is like people like you may tend to forget it, but it's a very real part of the game.
Okay. Now,
it's less present because now we don't have 2 trebs into each balloons.
Yeah. That's what we have to. That's the comparison that we're dealing with here, and this is exactly what you were saying, Bazik, is that we've been dealing with this for a long while. We used to have to deal with double treb balloon into
nice. Yeah. I know.
Killing your whole army with 2 treb crits.
Yeah.
So we used to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So you used to be very aware of what balloons could do.
Yeah.
Oh,
and now that you can no longer put the best units in them, you know.
Do you remember double knight into balloon into Caesar Groove? So you could move knights across the entire map. They would move like 20 squares or something, and you would get set up for crits and stuff. It was ridiculous. So
yeah,
and that's what balloons used to be. Yeah. But yeah, that was like a different era of the game.
I mean, it's almost exactly what you're saying. It's just you're less used to the power of a balloon, and a lot of us are still scarred from the things that balloons used to be able to do.
But that's the thing. Even a lot of players that are very used to it still fall into that mistake every once in a while. Like
which I think is actually like a really. I think it's a good thing for the game though, because it does keep things. I say interesting. Yeah, like people get caught off by like unexpected moves, and I think that.
And it's a learned skill, right? Like it's fun.
Yeah, and as long as like it's not too dominant. Like if Spear Balloon was completely unbeatable, like it was the strongest strategy, then we'd have a serious issue. But I think that there is enough counterplay to it that.
Yeah, I think our current map making meta and where balloons can get, and if you can, like specifically speaking, Gilgamesh. In Gilgamesh, you could not build 2 spears and a balloon and next turn have them on any front that you wished. That was impossible. And that was very likely a deliberate decision by Fated Sun, who made the map. Make it so you could not just produce those units and do anything. Now, in my game versus Shu, I did build 2 dogs and dog ballooned. And then I proceeded to sacrifice those 2 dogs into a swordsman. But, you know, we're going to forget about that second part.
By the way, let's move into next week. Instead of talking about the matches themselves, the thing I think would be fun was making like who do you think would win, and just go round table, like look at AWST, who is going to win out of these matches, then go GMT, who's going to win out of these matches, and let's piss off a lot of people.
Okay. Right. Shall we go AWST?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's use this chat that we have here. It's actually in chronological order for once.
Yeah. The last one I remember to do correctly.
Okay. So we got TFG versus Sneaky Dragon. I think Sneaky's gonna win.
I agree.
I'll go for TFJ, honestly. I'll be the outlier on that.
Wow. Are you just saying that to be the outlier, or
no? Not necessarily. It's just that.
But you think it can happen?
I don't. I mean, I haven't played against Sneaky recently, but when you have to realize that Sneaky and his involvement in Groove of War was almost directly related to me. Like, I got him to join this community, and all the stuff that he does and all his cool YouTube channels was in part related to because I convinced him to join this. And I'm not trying to oversell myself here. Sorry about that, but
it's fine.
So I used to play Sneaky when he was really bad at the game.
Okay.
And then he started taking games off me, and he was good, but I still have that like sort of preconceived notion that the first times I played him when he was kind of pretty bad at the game, that's sort of like the thing that determines me.
Okay. Fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
So, I think Loki is one of the best players of the community. Like, I would put him like top 3, easy.
I think he's capable of beating anyone.
That's the thing. That's exactly the thing.
How consistent he can do that is another question. But I think he's capable of beating anyone.
That's exactly what I think about him. Yeah. In any given day, he can win against everyone, but he can also lose. Like, he's a really smart player. I really like his play.
He also wins in a way that like no one else does to the same extent.
He's very unique. Yeah.
Like he'll set up, like it's in the name. Like he does really
sneaky stuff.
Yeah, he sets up plays to win games. That's the way he wins. He doesn't try and go for like the big economic safe lead or anything like that. He'll set up a trap and he'll like spring it on someone. He is capable of winning just like a straight up honest game, but he will beat you in a way that you won't see coming.
He's very dangerous. That's for sure.
So pretty much what I'm saying in that game, I don't think I could take any determinate victor. Because, I mean, based on what TFG has done, like...
Okay.
I think there is... I mean, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have just thrown his name out initially, but I think it could go either way.
That's fair.
But that's, once again, based on my... It's almost a negative preconception about his playstyle, and I know Sneaky's better than that because he's beaten me quite a few times. So...
Yeah.
One thing I will give TFJ is that he improved significantly between weeks 1 and 2. So if he keeps up that rate of improvement, then
it's that practice I was talking about. People are practicing.
I know, right?
People are taking it seriously, which is awesome.
Yep. All right, so
Loveless Saykoya, let's go.
Oh, I think Saykoya
I'd give
will
it to
win.
Loveless.
I'd give it to Loveless.
I'm gonna go with Saykoya on this one.
I think Saykoya can do it.
I've lost a lot.
But I'm gonna edge slightly by saying that Saykoya, you need to stop being nervous. You need to work on that stuff.
You also gotta stop sacrificing dogs for knights, okay?
That's a bad habit I got from playing you.
Well, don't trust the games you play in me, man. I'll just do the things I want to do, man. I
mean, you just beat you, like you're good, right?
No,
and
he's the best. To beat
I set people on tilt by playing non-traditionally.
I mean, I still feel like I lose, but I'll try to do my best. And if he gives me a free CO, then I'll take it.
I think you can take it. I think you can take it.
I mean, I think you can definitely bait Loveless into sacrificing his commander, because I've done that a few times. But I would say he definitely is he's definitely won more games than I have versus him. And I've won more games than I have versus you. So if you so that's where my statistics come from.
Yeah, but we play meme games, so you know.
Yeah, that's what I say. They're meme games, but maybe they're super serious. All my games are
I
meme
say
games.
they're meme games.
Okay, let's move to
Alright.
Loofberg.
Yeah, Loofberg.
I have no idea.
Neither have I. I do not know.
I'd say Burke, simply based on like how the way Loof.
Yeah, I expected
Played
Burke to win
Love
last week. I don't know.
It's like
I'm gonna go Burke
it
again.
was like
Screw
it
it.
wasn't very good opening, so I don't know. He has to change something if he wants to win, I think. So he probably should prepare.
I
Better.
guess we'll see. I guess Burke has the upper hand, but if Loof came out of nowhere and improved a lot, like put some time in, then
I mean, Burke does play a lot of quick play, so he might still have a lot of weird quick play habits built into him. So I think there's a chance for Loof, but I've literally never seen a game that he's in, so I'd have to say Burke, just based on pure popularity.
I think that's fair then.
Yeah.
By
Sorry,
GMT.
GMT?
Bazik versus Sejong.
Hmm.
So it's the one thing I'm gonna say about this is, I can't really ask you, Bazik, if you're gonna ban Sedge because you're kind of giving away strategy, but
I've already told you what's gonna happen when I play Sedge. A long time
what's
ago
gonna-
when we discussed this.
You're just gonna mirror Sejum.
Yeah.
Uh,
The perfect
I
solution.
give the edge to
You-
Sejong.
You know what's worse than banning Sedge versus Sejun? Mirroring Sedge.
I beat him, but I think he's definitely the more consistent player. So we'll see.
he's scary.
I know I can take games off of
genuinely,
him, but I'm not sure I'm gonna win. It's that simple. I think
It's
I
weird
think
because,
he
like-
definitely has the edge. He's the more experienced player.
I think the thing about Sejong for me is that if he wins an entire round robin in TYM, even like, and he gets put in the hard bracket now, right? If he wins, I'm not surprised if he beats everyone. Like, and
Yeah.
there's very few players that's true of.
Sneaky.
I will say, I think Sejun is a very aggressive player. Personally, I don't think I've ever actually lost to him. Maybe once, but I've fought him quite a few times, and I don't think I've lost to him. But that once again could be affecting my bias. So I actually would give it to Bazik because, I mean, I don't know. I actually haven't played him 2.0 either, so that could be a big factor. But he used to build like lots of spears and lots of sedge play and quick play meta. So
If you want,
he's probably
a
gotten
most
significantly
improved-
better.
Yeah, but if you want a most improved, like for the last 6 months, Sedge is probably it.
Sedge is
I think-
probably like the person that's improved most out of everybody in the community
Yep.
since the start, I would say. Because I mean, I don't want to like rag on him too much, but like I remember when he wasn't, like, I didn't consider him a good player, and that isn't true anymore.
No, he's a great player.
I definitely
Yeah.
consider it a good game, is what and that's the point of Swiss, is that it's supposed to get better quality games, and I definitely think it's going to be a good game. We're going to have this problem with almost every game in this.
No, and this is supposed to be a hard game, right? Like whoever wins out of us will be 3-0 next week. Like it's supposed to be already.
I think I kind of like, of course, I favor Sejun, but like, still there's a lot of like research I'm not done with the map, and like, for example.
Oh, the map is before the
if I-
flood, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but
No, because we haven't said that yet.
if if I find out that like Sedge is like the worst commander for this map, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, Bazik has
No,
a chance. 'cause he
that
just
changes
needs-
everything. Like
He just needs to not ban Sedge, and then
yeah.
and then he suddenly
If
has
Sedge's
a big
terrible and
advantage.
before the flood, then we have a completely different conversation. But I have no idea.
I mean, if you ban Sedge and he picks Dark Mercia, like, okay, that was the right call, right?
I mean,
That's
actually,
also a good point.
something
All
I'm
three-
very
I
curious
wanna-
about that, like, I think would be really funny if it happened is Sedge doesn't get banned, but he picks a different commander anyway.
That's not happening. I think he's too committed to the
Yeah.
persona.
I think like after how much has it been? Like 2 years of
year.
Sejun only playing
It's
Sage.
been a year.
It's
Yeah.
It's been a year.
a year and a third, quarter, year and a quarter.
No, it's only been like a year and 2 months.
Okay.
I really want to see what he picks when Ragnar and Sedge are banned, though.
Yeah.
All right, ban Ragnar and Sedge. Let's do it.
Let's
All
go,
right,
Captain
all right.
Rainbow, Master of Math. We've talked enough about me.
I think Math is my favorite to win, but Captain Rainbow has surprised me before in this event, and I'm completely open to that happening again.
Oh yeah, I put Master of Math and Shu in
Yeah,
the
I'd
finals,
like to see.
and I don't know
I'd like
who
to
wins.
see Captain Rainbow like win against Math, but I'm pretty sure that's not happening.
I would be very surprised if Captain Rainbow wins that match.
I will further agree that with Master of Math, that even he's got my number, all right? My fucking weird play and stuff. Oh, there was our one F-bomb. My weird play, he sees right through it. He destroys it. So even like that wild card factor that Captain Rainbow might have, I think Master Math will defeat it.
That's fair. I guess it's pretty unanimous. Like Master of Math, I think is
He
the
is the
favorite to win.
favorite. Yeah, he's the clear favorite.
But I hope that at the very least Captain Rainbow puts on a good show, which I think he's more than capable of. I think it will be a fun match to watch.
I think there's a chance for him to win. I just don't see it using the strategies that I use.
The kind of match I expect out of this game is the kind of match that I have personally with Master of Math every once in a while, which is the game seems even, and suddenly Captain Rainbow will make a mistake, and it will go downhill from there. Because Master of Math, like, his name is quite appropriate to the way he plays. He's very mechanical, very specific. I don't think he's very creative at all.
Yeah.
He's very specific in what he does, and he knows exactly what he wants to do. And if he plays against a player that is weaker than him, he exploits those weaknesses like no one else. And he just, like, the game seems like it's fine, and suddenly everything falls, and you're like, what happened here? Like, it's like a house of cards.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of how it happens with him. Every once in a while, you get a game off him, but other times it's just like.
Let's try to be a little faster, because like
Yeah.
spending a lot of time.
All right, Sankos versus Alsami Suzaku. I think Alsami's going to completely steamroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly same thing.
I think that's very likely. If that would be a true upset if that went the other way. And sorry for Sankos, but that I don't see it happening any other way.
I think Alsami, the only reason that match is happening is because Alsami played Math in the second round.
Exactly.
And now he's in the... I think he's going to, like... I predict Alsami's going to just win the next two rounds.
Alsami lost the match. He could have lost to the person. He could have lost the game, honestly. I don't think there's anyone else here on this bracket that could compete with him.
I think Sedge could potentially beat Suzaku.
He can beat him, but I think Alsami is still a favorite in that match.
That's fair.
All right, let's next.
Ash.
If Ash plays like he played last week, Space from.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna give it to Ash because Before the Flood is like you can get away with a lot of spears on that map.
I want to give it to Ash. I want to, but if he plays like he played last week, he's gonna lose.
Ash has played under a serious competitive format though on that map, so I actually think Ash could. I think Ash has got. If it was going to be any map that Ash was going to win on,
it's that one.
Yeah, because he's more familiar with it. Also, he missed a lethal opportunity against Red Jams of all players on that map. Like, he had a guaranteed win condition, and he just didn't know that he could do that.
And
so, I think this Ash can still do really great things, and I think this is a map that he's familiar enough with. He'll just steamroll.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think Ash is by far the best player of this matchup. I don't think it's even close. The thing is, the level of play Ash presented last week was really, really low. He really needs to pull that up. He needs to play a few games. Just a few games. Watch a few replays. Go to Group of War YouTube. Come on.
Yeah. All right, next one. Rylexander versus Data Gloves.
Rylexander.
I think Rylexander has it. I think Rylexander lost because he made a mistake in the first round, and like now he's like kind of has to go all the way back up. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really seen any of these matches, so I don't actually want to comment on that. Just from like a popularity contest, I've known Rylexander longer, so I would think he'd win, but that doesn't mean really anything in this type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, for as much as I'm saying Rylexander, I do think like Data Gloves does have a shot beating him.
Of course he has.
This is like less one-sided than like some of the other matches we talked about before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is gonna be a pretty.
I think the reason I pick Rylexander is because he's the more experienced player. It's not necessarily because he's a much better player. He just has a lot more experience in the game.
Yeah. Okay, next match. If Vito shows up, they win automatically.
Yeah.
So
if Vito shows up, he wins, which is gonna happen for sure. Like Vito is not gonna.
That's a Groove of War 3 meme for sure.
Yeah.
That was the Vite Vito situation.
Did he miss the match?
Oh, let's not go into that. That's a painful part of the event's history. All right. Paladin Fox versus Key. So Key didn't show up last week, and I haven't actually heard from them.
So
yeah,
it must be another
play
DQ.
yet. Like first week he didn't he DQ'd, so Ash got a win. Second, he's saying he didn't show up either, so
Yeah. This might just be a win for Paladin Fox.
Yeah.
I think he did respond to a message though, so it's a bit of a weird one.
Well, it says in round 1 here that Master Math beat Key in round 1, but I don't know if that was a DQ. It doesn't say DQ. It just says.
I think he
played. That happened.
Oh,
really?
I think he played.
Oh, I might be thinking about the wrong person then.
It was week 2. Key didn't show up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so it's possible.
I still think like Paladin Fox. I'll still say it because I've played against him. I've seen him
It's another one of those up and coming.
He has potential, and I don't really know a lot about Key, so
yeah.
And we probably can't see a lot from his match against Master of Math because Master of Math just probably stomps whoever makes a small mistake at the beginning.
That's fair. Yeah. Also, Paladin Fox was like a Grandmaster player in StarCraft 2 quite a long time ago, but he's also like still a high level Masters player. So he definitely knows how to like be good at video games. Yeah. So
he understands strategy.
No, you don't get it. Like if he's Grandmaster at StarCraft 2, he can be top level in like 90% of the games. He was probably putting like 8 hours, 10 hours a day on that game.
Hey, I got platinum one time in StarCraft 2 and then I stopped playing, all right? Let's be real.
I got platinum the first week of StarCraft 2.
Yeah, I think I started at platinum.
Oh, God. Anyways, Evil the Duck versus Zini. Well, seeing how Zene has disqualified for his first 2 matches.
Here's the thing, Zene is the player that keeps kind of showing up for matches and then not. But I got a message from Evil the Duck, and I hope I can resolve this, but apparently he isn't able to play any more of his matches.
Hey, that's annoying.
Yeah, it is sad. I hope that's something that can be resolved through some means.
He can't go through, but if he could play the games, it would be cool.
Yeah, I was gonna pick Evil from because
yeah, I think Evil got.
It's not been like top level, but he's had a good showing.
I'm also actually, if Evil can't play, I'm gonna be really sad for Zenai because Zenai's wanted to play, to my knowledge, and he's just kind of like
doesn't get the games.
Yeah, like he's like showing up late or like missed messages or something like that. Like,
I mean, I recognize the name. Is that an Advance Wars player? Actually, I know you guys are AWBW, so
no idea.
Yeah,
I feel like that's an Advance Wars by the web player, but so it might be a game. But once again, we also saw Walker play versus somebody in Groove War 3, and that was not a quality match by any stretch of the imagination.
But I agree with this Evil the Duck. I think it was Saykoya that was saying, like, he has been playing well. Like, I don't think his score reflects the level of play he's been showing. I think if he wasn't playing on this bracket, he would probably be 1-1. something like that. Like,
yeah, I look at his opponents and it's like he lost to Vito. You know, Vito's a good player. He lost to Ryle Zander because Ryle Zander bombed out. I say bombed out in the first round. It's a bit harsh, but it's true.
he got
So he's lost to two really good players
Yeah.
so far. Well, I'll see what we can do to help him still get to play. But I feel bad for Zenai. If Zenai shows up for their first ever match in this bracket, and then their opponent DQs, I'm going to feel pretty bad for them.
Yeah.
But if someone else has, if Foggy Hills can't play, and that is actually circumstances due to coronavirus going on right now, and to do with the lockdown, so like they literally cannot physically play.
Foggy Hills was also a really sad event. Like, he wanted to play, but he was on PS4 and he didn't notice that he couldn't play.
Well,
like,
they're a PC player originally, right? But they lost access to their PC because of the quarantine, and hence they can't play. And it's such a sad story.
Yeah, it's really bad.
What I'm hoping that we get when the PS4 releases is crossplay, because more games are getting that now.
Yeah.
I don't have any inside knowledge here, by the way. This is just like me speculating, but
it would be good.
Whoa, insight knowledge. That's a leak.
Heard it here first, boys.
Yeah, the inside knowledge that I don't have. It's
now we know.
Yeah, Wargroove's coming to VR. It's coming to the Nokia N-Gage before PS4. Let's be real.
So BST.
EST.
Played it some KillSauce.
No, EST first.
EST.
EST. We just went through EST.
No, we didn't.
No, we went to GMT.
There's just a lot of Americans in GMT.
Yeah.
Those dang dirt Americans.
Come on. CMA Daily Score.
Honestly, I think that's going to be a good match.
That's going to be a really good match. I expect it to. Actually, the two first games I expect to be good matches.
Yeah, I actually don't know who's going to win those. Like, I would maybe favor Mahinder against Lewis.
Not even.
Not by much, I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think it's a coin toss.
I think that's based entirely on, like, I think Mahinder's just been playing really well this tournament. So if they continue to play at that level, I think they have the advantage. But
yeah, I think it's a well matched game for sure. They're both.
I think Lewis and Mohinder are like they play a lot of 2v2s together and they practice a lot together. So I think honestly it's going to be probably a really good match.
Yeah.
From what I assume, because they both have probably similar strategies. So I'd like to see that evolve. But so I can make no judgments based on these first two games.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really think I can make any judgments about any game in this list, except
I think
Game 4.
I think Frogbrand takes it. I think Time Key also takes it, and I think D'Inferno also takes it. Those were my Galley's probably not showing up.
Yeah, Galley hasn't shown up. Galley isn't on the Discord. I really need to make more of an effort to try and get in touch with them, but there's every opportunity that they're just going to continue to not be here. And actually, I think Blackjack Zach didn't show up last week. Oh, they haven't shown up either. So this is like two DQs going into each other.
Oh no!
Nice.
Which is gonna make
be too much of an issue.
They're both disqualified anyway.
Yeah, they're both gonna not get a point. So that's gonna change how people come out of the bracket in general. Because when a tie happens, it gets confusing. But it shouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah.
And then we have R7000 versus Aponzus.
I mean, based on pure profile picture, I go for Aponzus because he's got an archer profile picture. So that's all I need to vote for.
I have no idea about that match.
They've both lost to good players, so it's going to be hard to sell.
By the way,
actually, I think this is going to be a really interesting match to watch from the opposite end, where it's going to be two newer players coming in.
I know
it'll be close because of that.
I know I said the 3 next games, but you guys didn't say anything. Do you just agree with me that it's Frogbrand, Time Key, and Inferno?
I'll agree with Time Key and Deferno. I played a few games against Zested. Can't say I haven't played against Fraudband, so I can't say that. I think unless Time Key pulls a Time Key, he should be fine. And D'Inferno, I know he's been around for a while, but he's never a consistent player. Like, I've seen him in Groove War 3, and I think that's it. He just doesn't really show up a lot.
But he's also not playing against a super high-level player, right?
Yeah. So I don't know about Shane compared to him, but once again, I really have no idea about D'Inferno, so...
Yeah.
I think D'Inferno likes to play Sedge. I think that's about the only detail I can think in my mind, that his profile picture Sedge, and he likes to play Sedge.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a quick look at what he was playing this tournament.
For Zested Fraudbrand, I'd give it more to Zested. I think Fraudbrand has like the capacity to become a good player, but right now he's still like very much in the learning phase.
Yeah, he's definitely in the learning phase.
Junior Smash Time Key, I agree that Time Key should win. But we never know.
But this is Time Key though that we're talking about.
Yeah, it is Time Key. You can never...
should win.
Yeah.
Okay.
Win.
So actually, looking, I just want to go. Since you were mentioning D'Inferno, like he played Vesper and he played Sedge, and he won with Vesper and lost with Sedge.
Won against who?
He won against R7000, who played Mercia, and he lost against Mahinder, who played Valder.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like, that's exactly how I expected it to
go. So that's sort of how we expect that bracket to go. But now I did play Zested a few times on Before the Flood. Like, this was just like 2 or 3 days. I think this is when Bazik jumped in on my stream and was watching me. But I did play him a few times, so I know at the very least he's gotten a few practice games, and he got them against me, and I've been like sort of theorizing the capture route on that map. So he started out not doing the right capture route and then ended up doing the right capture route. So it could just be a matter of experience if they're both inexperienced players.
Yeah.
But if you'd have to give anybody, I'd have to give it to Zested, because I've played versus him, and I feel like he might have learned something from the matches we had. But I can't say anything about Fraudband, but even then, I, once again, have no clue about this guy, so...
Oh, yeah.
He could be anywhere.
Yeah, there's a disclaimer in my... When I'm talking about these kinds of players, that is, whoever of these players, if only one of them practices the map, that player, even if he's the weaker player, immediately becomes a heavy favorite. Like, not even slightly. If one of them practices the map and the other one doesn't, like, it completely changes the dynamics.
God forbid we start playing Mori maps in Groove of 4 or 5.
Ooh. I'm not looking forward to this.
Alright, shall we go to PST?
Yeah, let's go. Faded Sun, KillSauce, finally.
Well, obviously KillSauce. I've lost to Faded Sun's Dark Mercia before, but that was just a RNG win.
You've even lost to my Dark Mercia. Come on.
So I'll be honest.
Shots fired.
My wife, who's never even like played a naval match of Wargroove with naval units, has beaten Faded Sun. But that's also with my guidance. But on the same way, I've also lost to Faded Sun quite a few times. And I've never lost to my wife. So there's a lot of things. But I think both me and him play a lot of RNG games, and we both of us will play coin flips and do a lot of crazy things. So I think it'll be an interesting game at the very least, because we both don't respect RNG. We both assume that a 50% chance is a 100% chance to win every time.
I love that you set up like a win triangle there. It's like completely unrelated. It's just like, well, my wife, this person, I've never lost to my wife. So.
My wife beat him, so I beat my wife, so I never lose to him.
Wow, KillSauce beats his wife.
I always beat my Edit that out!
But no, for real, I think it's a coin toss.
Yeah, like I don't know. Faded has the advantage that he made the map, so that's always gonna be like fairly useful when you're going into an event. But I'm very curious to see how this plays out.
Next.
To be honest, like I'd give it more to GrillSauce if he doesn't meme too hard.
And what I will say is, if it was Shu versus Faded, I would give it to Shu. So
Shu against who?
If Shu had beaten KillSauce and it was Shu against Faded,
that would be guaranteed. That would be guaranteed. That reminds me when Portugal beat France in the Euro. Like, we were the underdogs, but
I think we might as well flip a coin, because I think both of us are going to go for RNG kills and RNG plays, and it's just going to be a clown fiesta the whole way.
It's going to be like that one match from Wargroove Group War 3.
It's like I think you're a small favorite if you'd prefer, instead of a coin flip.
Well,
instead
you
of the
just
coin
won
toss.
against Shu, so that's gonna count, right?
It actually doesn't. It actually doesn't. Like,
yeah, maybe all the luck went out with the Shu win.
It actually
though.
doesn't.
He's just going to get all of his.
If it had been a super convincing win, like he had actually destroyed Shu, then sure. But the game, as it was, like the kinds of things that were advantageous against Shu probably don't translate well against Faded. Like playing super fast against Faded is probably not relevant.
He had a good advantage against Shu at some point, so I mean.
I did, and then I immediately threw it away. Because,
Yeah, but that throwing away has just baited him into the position to get.
Yeah.
Killed,
Yeah, but that bait's not going to work against Faded, because he'll throw his shit into me, to bait me first, and I'll go for it.
That's the thing. Like the skills don't transfer. Right, There's no triangle here.
Let's just move on.
Enderman, I will be an inch.
I think Enderman.
So
I really want to say I will be an inch because he's my hero now, but Enderman will take it.
For the memes, I will be a ninja.
But I will be a ninja is my hero.
This was like the greatest casual match we've commentated, was just him, like, and he had like the weirdest opening. He made it work. He just got a solid
He won
win.
against Headphones.
It was against Headphones, so it's not nothing, You gotta watch out for him.
Cast
He's a ninja.
At 5 a.m, super tired. We laughed so much. It was awesome.
I would want to see actually him do a really weird opening and it work.
I don't believe it will.
Okay, but if you're gonna go by pure amount of, who has the most emotes on the Groove War Discord, then I'm gonna have to go for Enderman, because he's
Enderman
got
will win this easy.
Like, he's got on the official Wargroove Discord. He's got the biker helmet that was based off of him. It's like you can't beat that.
Like Enderman.
That's true.
If Enderman loses this match, all respect goes away.
Oh, don't say that. One thing.
I'm obviously joking, but the thing is, Enderman.
He does have issues with nerves sometimes, so that can come into play.
With what? With what?
Nerves.
Really?
Like he can get nervous about a match and lose.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just saying, I will be a ninja has a very good chance of winning, right?
No, but Enderman should take it.
Not trying to put pressure on him.
Like, Enderman is the far better player. It's not even close in terms of skill.
I do I think if I will be a ninja wins, I think like the one way you could do that is throw him off, and just do like a wacky play that like nobody expects. But I guess we're gonna see. I mean, there isn't too much weird stuff you can do on Before the Flood.
It has to be Enderman throwing. Enderman has to pull a time key. That's the only way I'm seeing this going forward.
I'm gonna put a ballista on the corner island.
It has to be something super weird.
Like, I mean, actually, this is the point. This is the first map where like you can go trebs. So we're gonna start seeing some wheels come out.
Yep. I've seen some in the Shu's practice matches. He was practicing with Master of Math. Yeah. And there were trebs.
Okay, next match. Nargatep versus Shu. Does anyone think Nargatep
same thing
has a chance?
Same thing. Like Shu needs to win this.
No.
Like
I mean, yeah, I think Shu's gonna win that.
And
but
after
I mean,
last week's loss, he needs to win this. Like, he actually needs to win this, not just for Groove of War.
I feel like Shu has been practicing a lot more on the map after he lost to me.
Like,
so
it's probably.
I feel like
he also knows enough about the map to go to the map maker and say, "There's like some FTA, STA stuff going on here. Please fix it by the next round." And we did, because he gave us a convincing argument. But yeah, I think she has this.
Might be a little responsible for that, but you know.
Just want to throw it out there.
You want to play a match right now, so I can see a master strategy, so I can beat Faded on his own map?
It's no longer real. The map has been changed.
Yeah, we made some edits, so
by
the time this podcast,
cheese?
I think there was something to do with like because of the way, like it's actually like a mapping concept that needs to change. Where like if player 2 has their commander moved like forward a turn essentially, then they also need to have the groove increased. And this might not always be the case, but like it's a general like rule of thumb that I think is going to change.
I mean, I think I read that most of that. I was doing some other stuff, but I read some of that. That makes sense with if you're going to give that as your FTA counter, then
they should have
then,
the extra
then they should have 100% of that FTA counter, not just a portion of that FTA counter.
Yeah, I mean, and then that might not always be the case. Like some maps, it might actually balance out. But in this case, I think it is like, yeah. So yeah, I think everybody here thinks Shu's going to take it.
Yeah.
Best of luck to Nargatep. I hope it's a good match. That's what I hope.
I mean, I remember my first match with him was on Harpy's Roost, and that was in 1.3. But that was on the 2.0 mod, maybe? I don't know. It didn't have Rifleman yet. So he was, from my one match with him, he seemed like a pretty smart player. So I don't think it'll be an easy match, per se. But I definitely would give the favorite issue.
Yeah, he's not bad, and he knows, like, he can... I've seen him like craft some like interesting strategies and stuff, so he might be able to surprise you, but I don't think that will be enough.
I think Shu is a far better player than Nargatep. Like, I don't think this is close.
I mean, I think that's what you guys said about me and Shu, so, you know, just saying. Saying.
No.
You're better than Nargatep.
But anyway, last match. Deverian versus Headphone.
Has Deverian even played yet? I think we haven't even said his name yet.
They got a bye second round and they lost first round to Shu. So
yeah, it's hard.
It's not a huge amount of information to go with.
It's hard to say.
I mean, and this is in my bracket, and I didn't even realize this person's in my bracket.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird because like one person gets a bye each week. So
also, Headphone played in the casual match really bad, but it might have been throwing people off.
It might have been because it was casual.
Yeah, he might have been trolling.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen Headphone from my Groove of War 3 experience be wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, Headphone's very like hit or miss, which I think it all depends on which headphone shows up that day, right? Like if it's the headphone that like beat me on Butterfly in that TYM when I beat Alsame, Math, and Shu, then I think that headphone can win and like win very convincingly. If it's the headphone that dives really deep with their commander and just loses, then yeah, I don't know about that headphone.
Yeah, I think that was my first encounter with him. It was like he tried to neuro cheese me and I just killed him. I mean, what are you doing?
I mean, one of his redeeming factors is that he's really good about figuring out cheese. So, you know, but if cheese doesn't work, you know, like two of you guys have played StarCraft here, unless Saykoya has too. But you know, if you defend against cheese, the cheese loses. That's it. There's
not always true, but yeah, generally speaking.
Well, generally speaking, yeah. That's why it's called cheese. It's because you can't just six pool and expect to, if you don't win, to win after that.
Yeah.
Or StarCraft 1 Days 4 pool. But anyways. So Landshark versus Bai. What do you guys think?
I mean, Bai has been pretty inconsistent. I don't know. It's like
I give it to Bai.
Bai's been very consistent in that they've lost every round.
I give this one to Bai. I think it will be an easy win for Bai.
I just want to check actually. Landshark.
I mean, you look at Landshark's profile picture on Discord, and honestly, it's pretty good.
Landshark had a really good game. Like,
here's the thing though, Landshark didn't show up on time for his second round match. He was one of the people that got DQ'd. Nargatep as well, actually. I think those were two of the people that were like, "Oh, actually, I meant to show up on time," and
yeah, it was pretty horrible last week. Like, we were waiting for the games, and they were like, DQ.
One of them showed up late. One of them thought it was Friday. I think I can't remember. I think it was this bracket. But
Damn the Americans!
Dang dirt PST bracket. All them sucking there.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. Like, stop DQing. Take an example of AWST or something.
Who DQ'd the whole first
two
week?
Brackets together. They're almost the same time, right? And you just play AWST on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, like Landshark doesn't even have to show up to win. He gets the auto win. Like, he doesn't actually have to show up that week. So yeah. Landshark gets his like extra win, which puts them on. Alright, so that will be like their first win in the bracket, so they'll be 1 and 2 technically at that point. Which means they won't qualify to get out. Even if they win the next one, but
So I'm just wondering, like, for me, who got a buy on the first week, let's say hypothetically I completely meme faded Sun and beat him with Merciful. Erroneous details. And I go 2-0. Who would I fight? Because I don't think anybody else is going to be 2-0 in this bracket.
No, but you're 3-0, right? If you do that.
Yeah, you'll get 3-0, not 2-0.
No, but in the on the website itself, it says I'm 2-0.
Yeah,
no, it
then
says
you'll
I'm
win
1-0 right now. No, it says I'm 1-0 right now. I'm sorry. So if I win versus Faded Sun, I'll be 2-0.
Why does it
you'll
say
be
1-0?
2-0 on game count and 3-0 on set count. I'm looking at the back end, by the way, not the front of the website.
So in the back end, it considers me 3-0, and it would weigh me against anybody else who's 3-0.
Yeah, I think if let's say you end up 3-1 and someone else is 3-1, but that person didn't get a bye, I think you'd go through second, depending. There's a few other factors in there, but generally speaking, like, you would go through second. But if you win all your matches, then of course you're gonna. But you won't play the same person twice, to my understanding. So that you played Shu, like you
that's all I'm hoping for. That I don't have to play Shu again.
No, that
really
doesn't happen for sure.
Yeah, I think if you win this one, then you're gonna play
whoever is 2-1 next.
Yeah,
probably.
Which is likely Enderman if Enderman wins. So yeah, it's a weird one. Swiss gets a bit weird when you have uneven numbers.
Okay, but if I beat Faded, then he'll be 2-1, and Shu potentially would be 2-1. So then I would have to maybe fight one of them again. Actually, if you think about it.
I don't think the system will put you into someone you've already played.
Oh wait, no. If Enderman lost, he'd be 2-1, and I'd probably have to fight him.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Enderman's 1-1 right now.
So yeah, anyways, that's not a.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see that when it happens. I'll beat everybody. Merciful, you better ban Merciful versus me.
Actually, let me just check something. I will be in Ninja's 1-1, and he's playing Enderman, who's also 1-1. So there will be another 2-1 that you'll have an opportunity to face.
So I'm almost if I beat Faded Sun, I will fight one of those two.
Yeah, actually, I think the way it'll work is it's very likely going to be you and Faded versus Enderman and I will be a Ninja, and it will, like, depending on their result and your result is how that will play out. To my understanding, I think that's how it will work.
But if you win next week, if you win Thursday, you're already qualified.
Yeah, like if you go 3-1, I think you're guaranteed to go through.
Yeah. On PST is guaranteed, yeah. PST will have tiebreakers with 2-2s.
Right.
Yeah, AWST will also have tiebreakers with like 1-2.
We don't want to hear about ASWT.
Yeah,
All of you succeed.
And GMT will have tiebreakers with 3-1s.
I mean, I think this is
so unfair.
This is a good time to wrap this up. We've been almost going for 4 hours, so
yeah, it's not.
That went a lot longer. I think we were planning half an hour originally. So
yeah. No, but I don't like I said it like if we're gonna do full brackets like 2 rounds at a time, it's gonna take a time.
Yeah, it's true.
Of course, we got off topic, but we talked about a lot of history. Okay,
Yeah,
we don't have to talk about history next time.
We covered a lot of ground.
Chess timers behind too.
Yeah, so do we never have to talk about chess timers again?
Ever again?
I mean, it's inevitably going to come up, but I think we're not going to have the big long discussion about
I think we said
maybe
everything.
at the end of the event. I think that's another good time.
There
to
shouldn't
talk
be
about
any
it,
surprises.
Yeah.
I think the only way the timer ever changes, and it's not related to the pros and cons of the timers. I think it has to be something by popular opinion, because the timer we're using right now is the most popular timer. So, unless that changes,
the only change I see in the future would maybe be a 45-minute timer.
No,
they add it.
I'm vehemently against that.
I also at least for the current rounds that we're seeing, we won't change the timer because a lot of people signed up for brackets based on their I think some of the people in the AWST bracket signed up because it's before they go to work in the morning, and if we extend the match time, then they won't be able to enter anymore.
Also, it defeats the purpose of making people play faster.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the timer changing if we did larger maps, for example.
I mean, there's a 3-hour chess timer, okay, in the game settings.
Yeah, but that's completely nonsense. You can play 3 games on that timer.
That's some you'd use that to play some of the games that TimeKey is posting or saying cursed maps and stuff like that.
Maybe. I mean, I made a map that would probably I don't even think that would take 3 hours on chess timer, but
you would have to glue 6 butterflies for a 3-hour
stalemate.
That's 26 span islands right there.
Yeah, but it would have to be something like that for a 3-hour match.
Yeah.
No, 3 hours a person. Not a 3-hour match.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 6-hour match.
6-hour match.
That would be a fun show match, maybe. Actually,
not really.
No.
Well, I won't be playing.
I still remember. I was here. I watched through the internet when it was happening. The 6-hour match, and please no.
That's still the most popular competitive Wargroove video.
It's normal because a lot of people were playing.
Yeah,
I think people underestimate the amount of people that bought the game initially, and then the game couldn't grab on.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a discussion we have later, but I don't.
It's a next next podcast.
We'll leave that a few ones, but okay, yeah. Thank you everybody for listening to us ramble about Wargroove for 4 hours. I was GimbleB.
Oh yeah, I'm DrKillSauce. Don't forget to like and subscribe to whatever it is that you like and subscribe to.
Sneaky Dragon? I don't know. It's not on his channel, but go like and subscribe to Sneaky Dragon.